All right. Well, now you've donated twice. We're gonna have to watch this. We have to see. All right, all right. I had this saved up here. It's been up here since you told me about it. So we're gonna watch this right now.
Thank you.
This is the young lady that debated Charlie Kirk. May he rest in peace. Oh, but let me show you real quick. Because Eric asked. Let me show you how the book is coming. I've gone through a few Oh no, my headset died. No. Okay, we're at 25% life. You need to react to Hi Ron. Someone put through Google Translate into different languages. And it's hilarious. All right, well that sounds dope. But Eric, just because you asked, we're about 26 chapters deep, I believe. I'm working on the 27th chapter now. But it's just not coming out the way I want it to, dude. It's just missing some stuff. But so, do you have electricity in Canada? Yes, I do. Well, Kia does. I technically live in a van, but she's letting me stay in here, and she's telling me it's my home, but I'm not used to kindness, so yes, I have electricity. So Ill of Men, because it's going to be a 3-act story, at least that's what the initial plan is. I have up to 3 hours already written from. I started changing some stuff around. I aged up the characters because it started feeling a little gross. And because like I'm a huge fan of Game of Thrones, I decided to start adding in sub chapters essentially with other different people's perspective. Chapter 6 was initially the first chapter of the book, what I wrote in high school when we were going to school together. And then it comes all the way down to right now I'm on chapter 26, where we're about to get into our first real big battle. So this is pretty cool. But I also then, because like I want to add more context to the overall story, then I have the Illimin, the Colors of the Five Kingdoms, which are stories about the actual places. Oh, my phone's about to die too. I only have one wire. It's, you know how it goes. But 20% should last me a while. So like I have stories that explain the kingdoms, the heroes of those kingdoms, the environment, the dragons, the myth, the lore. And then also goes into now I'm starting the sub chapters where it goes into like other characters that aren't going to have like, that aren't like the main characters. And I mean, I'm still probably going to put main character stories in here that are outside of the main story. And then we also have, we skip Ill of Desire. That's just the adult version of Illimin for in a different world. Then we have Poems of Illimin. This one I like a lot. This is like poems and of like characters. Like this one's a promotional poem. This is an actual poem about the Adar Ian, the roaming beast. Poem about the view of the gods from the view of men, and then the view of men from the gods. A song that I wrote about chapter 5, which is the mock battle, which actually now that I have you here, you want to help me do a fucking song? I have to do a song for that when it comes down to the audiobook that I'm also working on. So if you want to help me play some guitar on that, let's fucking get down on that, homie. And then I'll sing the lyrics, or, you know, we could sing a harmony, dude. I don't give a fuck. Let's get it done, dog. I can't guarantee we're going to make a lot of money off of it because those get some of the least amount of views on the channel. But, you know, whatever it makes, I'll give you half of it, dude, if it's... And then, of course, a little teaser for the third act. Then poems, and then, like, marches, and then stories. And then, of course, all of them are accompanied with artwork that I've, you know, manufactured through AI. And stuff like that. I mean, it's going good, bro. The stories have gone through like 5 rewrites up to this point. I technically have the entire book finished. When do you find time to write that? I have to read it, but I got out of the habit of reading years ago. Looking good, coming along. I'll have to read more. I could possibly write some medieval guitar. No money needed. Hell yeah, brother. I'm telling you, dude. I think we could do a lot of fun. Well, so I'll be honest. I haven't been working on Ill of Men for the past 3 weeks. The 2 weeks before I moved to Canada, or a week before I moved to Canada, I kind of chilled. And then I even said that like on some streams I might write more and more, and then it would be kind of cool, because I'm also like I have more characters I have to write. Me and Pixie got together, and I planned a character, a witch from Minoste, which is like more of the Eastern culture and more based on like Japan and stuff like that, and where they have more vibrant colors and like so like I already have some people helping me like get characters out that I'm trying to put in the book. Like I think right now I'm at like 27 characters. It's a massive story. And also I'm like posting things in the Discord where people can go in and see characters and artwork and help me kind of lead the direction on these things, because I'm having a lot of fun with it, but I haven't really worked on the book in about 3 weeks. But it's been a fun ride. Whoa, why did that go over there? What the fuck? Remove. That was strange. You could just move things over. Give it a specific. You have a new life to make time away to be expected. Fuck yeah. Yeah, dude. But like I said, I was writing Ill and Men. I was writing 2 to 3 chapters a day, because like all the chapters I'm working on now, other than like the different perspective ones, are brand new, are old chapters that are now going through like the first iteration of Ill and Men was really bad. Okay, let's just go full game since we haven't watched the video yet. So like the first the first write of Ill and Men, actually I think I didn't even send this one to Eric, because Eric is one of the few people that I sent this to initially. I think I sent him like the 4th rewrite of Ill and Men. The first chapter I wasn't even cool with at all. It was written in a 3rd-person perspective, and the characters, well, it was a direct rip from stuff I wrote when I was 15. So like there was a lot of unnecessary sexual stuff happening, and it was not cool. So after reading it a few times, I'm like, this is just grotesque. I can't. So then I try to write it more in like try to add a different layer to it, try to make a grim dark fantasy out of it, and that was gross after a few chapters. Like I wrote people like shitting in the streets because it was like the medieval era, right? And then I put like the smell of like rotted fish everywhere and piss, and it was grotesque as well. And I'm like, all right. So I started taking some of that out because I didn't enjoy reading it. And if I didn't enjoy reading it, and I was the one fucking writing it, who the fuck else is going to, And then I started writing I tried to like go into a 1st-person perspective, because I wrote one chapter in 1st person called The Voice Behind the Distant Stars or something like that, where a character was having a voice with one of the gods from like a different, plane of existence, essentially. And it was a really cool, fun experiment. So then I wrote the 4th iteration of the book in 1st person from the perspective of the character. And that was pretty cool, but I still kept a little bit too many of the sexual elements to where something dirty happened in like every other chapter. And like, I'm like, okay. So now this iteration of the book, I've taken out almost all of the sexual elements of the story. I've taken out a lot of the pranks and stuff that I had initially in the first 4 drafts. And now when I add sexual elements into the story, where something is happening, I do it at a cost. So like there's a scene where 2 people make love, but in that scene, you're not really like, it might be titillating to somebody, but it's not meant to be, because like the background information that's happening should also ruin that titillation. The rhyming is a bit shit, but I don't feel like prompting it again. Oh man. Oh fuck, I need to make it to where you can, or a mod so you can post this somewhere, but I can't do that here. Why not? But anyway, Ill and Men's coming along, dude. Yeah, like the newest versions of the book, I'm like going out and I'm taking out more of the sexual stuff. I mean, unfortunately, because the way it was written when I was a young man, there's still like sexual tension throughout the entirety of the thing. That most people can pick up right away. But if I take out any more, so technically I was very hesitant to get to the chapters that I'm at now, and I still am. I'm very scared to release more because now we're getting into the villains of the book, and the villains of the book are grotesque in dark, rancid ways. And I had like a month-long internal battle on whether or not I should release it as is or completely rework the way the villains work. Not to spoil too much, but the concept I was going for were defilers. For anyone that knows, defilers are like the dark paladins that do bad things and unholy shit. Kind of horny beast, yes. So the way that, I don't want to go into the spoiler aspect of it, but what I can say is the way that they propagated the ichor, which is the thing that is used to create more defilers or monstrosities, depending on how and where they defile things, because it depends on the state of what they defile, is a little grotesque in its delivery. And I had a long battle with myself on whether or not I should keep it in the story. So essentially, defilers, they go into a kingdom or a town, and then they start to corrupt people through reproductive means. And depending on the state of the person, it has a different effect on the body. So if someone is, let's say, no longer alive, they mutate into gigantic, disgusting monstrosities. And if a person is alive, they become another defiler. And the defilers are linked to, a religion. And I'll just leave it at that. So it was a hard battle. I asked like 20 people on what I should do. And most people just said, quit being a bitch, just put it out there. The defiler defiles, and defiler, do they shower with them with kindness? With ichor, maybe. You know what I mean? Look, it was grotesque, but I decided to keep it in for now. If I get a bunch of pushback when the chapters come out, well then, maybe I will not do that. But I don't know, man. Once you see how it links into other stuff, you'd be like, oh, I get it. But like to get there, you have to. I don't know, man. It's called the Necrocyte Plague. Okay, Necro's in the name. That's all I'm gonna put out there. And look, it's not something I really want to talk about on YouTube. Hard battle. No. Not like that. Not like that. It's a rough one. But anyway, enough about that. How do I see this thing? Is your art, which is it is your art. What needs to come out? Just a built of magic time with Ulamog the Defiler. Yeah, dude. It's my art, but it's based on duality and stuff like that, And one of my core tenets that like even the bad has good in it. You know what I mean? Anyway, it's rough. The next handful of chapters that come out literally have them in it, and it's grotesque. Like the next chapter is going to be a rough one to write because one of the characters, Winslet, is a former slave girl who was sold into slavery at a young age, and so I have to like give her backstory, and it's going to be really challenging to write, and I hopefully do it in a respectful way, which I will send the chapter to a few people and be like, please tell me this is not disgusting, because she's not just she became a what's it called when the girl becomes like we're all in yin yang, the bad. The good and the bad is very Ren. Yeah, that's why it was crazy that when I started watching Ren, all that shit came out, because I was like, yo, wait, what the fuck? This motherfucker is literally talking about the shit that I've been talking about forever. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's crazy, dude. It's just crazy. The next few chapters are going to be the roughest ones, okay? That's all I'm going to put out there. Well, they're going to be the start of the rough shit. I'm so yummy. All right, let's get into I did want to watch this today. I do want to watch this. This is something Kia sent me. I don't even know who this is. We do got to watch this, and this is from another video, and one of these days I have to watch this because someone asked me my opinion on it. I haven't seen it yet. All right. So this is the young lady that did the debate with Charlie Kirk. Let's go into the reaction section. Look, no matter what your political affiliation is, it's easy to say that Charlie Kirk got dog walked when he went to Cambridge. It's just that simple. He didn't know any facts. They called out so many good points. I'm also Tim Tams. Look, wait, Tim Tams, aren't those like the little fucking mini donuts from like Tim Hortons or whatever? Look, I'm in Canada. I should know these things now, but I don't. Oh, fucking A, dude. All right, let's get into this debate, this conversation. How old was this? 2 weeks ago. Okay. Relatively. I bet you this lady called out the violence against Charlie Kirk too. Which, you know, we need more of.
For having me.
Charlie Kirk recently came over to Cambridge to debate students, as he often does, and he gets to pwn them and own them and publish them on his channel. And
Aussie biscuits. Ah, the cookies, bro. What the fuck? As a fat guy, I should have known that. I'm still a silver shitter, but I have to go run some errands. I'll be back in an hour. All right, well, I'm going to copy that because I'm going to have to add you, dude, because, like, we need to play again, homie. Like, say what you will, but I miss you, dog. Makes you be proud to be British. Exactly, dude. Your guys' college equipped with intelligent, free-thinking people. Our colleges don't know what a fucking fetus is. And you're like, what the fuck is this? Then again, Charlie Kirk doesn't know what a fetus is either. Did you guys ever see the video? Hey, I made it. Hey, I made it to the live stream. What's going on? It's Alan Tioff, my boy. What's up, dude? I think it is. I recognize the photo. Maybe. Anyway, it's a bummer because, like, if you guys saw the thing where a guy was like, he was holding up like a picture of an embryo, and he was like, what was it, dude? What'd he say? He's like, are you gonna say that this is the person? This woman makes me proud to be human. I was so impressed by her. That'd be me. Yeah, what's up, man? I fucking love you, dog. Hey, let me just say this. I'm so glad you give me pushback, man. I love it. I fucking love it. You know what I'm saying? Like, we do not have to agree on things. Actually, you know what? I think by and large we agree on a lot of things. I think so. I think a majority of people do. We just disagree on how to get there. And I got so much love and respect for you, dude. But those comments in there were getting a little wild in a few of them. You know what I'm saying? But let's talk about it real quick. When the fact that he was like, that embryo is undoubted a human fucking embryo. And he's like, sorry, that's a dolphin. Like, you're like, whoa! So Charlie Kirk debated this young lady. I think she's a feminist, you know, and me and her probably disagree on a handful of topics, you know, but that doesn't mean what she's saying isn't true. Watching her debate, I remember when she was debating Charlie Kirk on What is a Woman, she did it very beautifully, you know? But I will say before we watch any of this, and even though my boy Destiny is coming out saying that we shouldn't shout, you know, disown the violence, and I understand his opinion about it, and I even agree to it with some extent, that at some point it's on the right to say that violence is bad and that they need to simmer the fuck down. But I will say that any form of violence is bad, and we shouldn't be doing anything like that, and may Charlie Kirk rest in peace. I do not like that his wife is going around and using his death as like a vehicle or a vector to like push people to more extremes, but I can understand why her husband was murdered in front of her along with her two kids. We need to stop this, and if I can do anything to tone down my side, I will. The violence is not acceptable, and if you are someone who is participating in violence, me and you are not friends. We're not on the same side. I'm a liberal. I believe that people have the right to live their life how they see fit, even if the shit they say is disgusting. I was against people that said it was okay to punch Nazis. I don't think Nazis are going to be too close to power. And if they do get close to power, we need to defeat them in the marketplace of ideas. We need to have conversations. And I do think that, unfortunately, Nazism or neo-Nazism is on the rise here with people like Nick Fuentes and Sam Hyde that actively call for the cancellation of all HB1 visas, and they think that white people shouldn't be with black people or Mexican people. They are a form of separatist. Now, that's not to say people like Sam Hyde are anti-black. They're not. He's anti-immigration because black people are already here. He's already bitten that bullet. He's okay with that. But he's against Indians coming here. He's against Muslims coming here. They say things like these religions or view styles or people are antithetical to the American Judeo-Christian beliefs, and I disagree that that's what America's based off of. I believe that America is based off of the Enlightenment era, and the reason why we became the dominant powerhouse that we were for so long was because of the Industrial Revolution, and we had innovation, and we had the ability to think about things on a universal scale, and we had uncapped, well, not uncapped, but we had a looser cap on our capitalism, where we believed that people with good ideas and they had the funding and the support to push those ideas could do so. And we see that that's why people like Elon Musk, no matter what you think about him, came to America for a reason. She's still mourning, but we do need to meet violence with more violence. Yeah, we don't need to meet violence with more violence. And I'm not entirely sure the guy that said that did it. Yeah, they said did it. Yeah. Yeah, you know, and no matter what is going on, at the end of the day, unless you want civil war, we need to simmer the fuck down. So even though Destiny won't call it out, and even though I'm a DGGer and I'm on his camp and I'm on his side and I agree with a lot of his points, I still will. Because I don't give a fuck about waiting for Trump to do it. I'm going to say it regardless. And then I'm going to point my finger at Trump and be like, you need to do your fucking job and start condemning this shit yourself. I'm not going to play defense for him. And I'm not going to, I'm not doing any of that. I'm going to say what I think is correct regardless of the circumstances surrounding it. Because it doesn't matter what the other side is doing at some extent. Because even if we get extinct, like Martin Luther King, again, made the movement that he was a part of so powerful by rejecting violence no matter what. And part of this dichotomy that Destiny is leaving out of his equation is that more than half of the United States doesn't fucking vote. If people that are tuning in, seeing the right say unhinged shit, and the left keep, like, they see them like saying, hey, let's stop this shit, those people are more inclined to vote Democrat when they enter the arena. But if we're going to sit there and join in with, like, I don't give a fuck about that guy dying, then they're going to see both sides. And they're not tuned into the whole culture war for the last 20 to 30 years. They don't know all of the things that the right has done, the left has done. They're talking about the here and now, the tangible, the things that they can see with their naked eyes. Our fucking attention span is so goddamn short that, like, if you're not tuned into it, you're not going to know about the political divisiveness of fucking Rush Limbaugh or Glenn Beck or Bill O'Reilly when he used to call you a Kool-Aid drinking fucking terrorist supporter if you talked against the war in Iraq. People aren't going to remember that's the way it was. People don't remember what Fox News used to be like, but they'll sure as hell go watch George Carlin talk about how both sides are the problem. But then they don't look at the political landscape for the past 30 years and the content creators on one side that primarily were pushing divisive rhetoric. Like, for 20 years since I was a junior, like a fucking member of high school, the right has been calling about deportations, talking a great deal about getting immigrants out of our country, and we got to save the American farmers. We hear the same talking points even today. Like, it's been going on for a long time. Oh, yeah, the video. My bad. You right.
Tilly Middlehurst, thank you for coming down. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Charlie Kirk recently came over to Cambridge to debate students, as he often does, and he gets to pwn them and own them and publish them on his channel. And he didn't get what he was hoping for, because at Cambridge there was lots of students, one of them being yourself, who was prepared, very prepared.
Does tearing down statues correspond to some kind of smiles per capita data set that I wasn't aware of?
Again, it's a little bit of a one-liner.
And so the situation was
A little bit of a one-liner. Don't you use "what is a woman" constantly? Wasn't that the name of your debate prompt, dude? What the fuck are you talking about? I've seen him go "what is a woman" to many liberals when he doesn't want to answer or bite a bullet on a point. Because the whole point is to obfuscate and make the person look crazy, because he believes that biology is cut in stone and we're not going to talk about like the spectrum of information that we have, or the fact that we're going to talk about sex versus gender. Like, sure, I guess, if you want to get some political capital with your base, what is a woman? But, you know, it's a complex question that isn't just summed up in one answer. Like, what is a table? Why do some tables have 3 legs and some have 4? Why do them have 2? What is a table? Why are tables malleable? Why is our information about a table different? What is a table? What is a desk? Why are these things different? What is a coffee stand? Are they all still just a table? Like, language is complex, and when we say things, we're not really asking you what the definition of a thing is. We're trying to infer what we believe that is based off of like approximate information. Like, that's why differences in languages can be difficult for people to navigate. It's complex.
essentially watching him have a bad time and then move on to the next person and have a bad time. And because of his performance not going so well, there's been lots of clips going viral, lots of people covering the content, including myself. And although lots of the students did well, your performance in particular is one of the ones that people have focused on with just widespread praise, essentially, including from myself. And although I've done an analysis of the exchange that you had, which is completely external.
Human testimony is arbitrary. Reality is messy and undefined, random. Exactly. We exist in the chaos, and we create order to define chaos. But chaos is the natural, level of existence.
External is what I think what's going on. Here, we have the incredible opportunity to get inside your mind, to understand how was you so prepared? How did you have these notes in front of you? He brought up certain data, and you were like, boom, here's my notes. Here's the refutation. And so maybe there's something you can teach us with how to interact with conservative figures like him who do very well in that limelight normally, but it went so catastrophic in Cambridge. And so my first question really is, when you decided I'm going to go and have this chat, have this exchange with Charlie Kirk, did you have a goal in mind?
I did. I think one of the issues that the left tends to have is that the left are more likely to lean academic in some capacity. So the left are more likely to have attended university. You have a lot of left-wing university professors. That obviously does feed into the idea of left-wing indoctrination camps being universities, right?
Factual. I spent a long time complaining that colleges are just rife with left-wing ideologues that are being bought and buying into Marxism, Leninism, and shit like that, or a Marxist-Leninist. Because mainly I was convinced of that by someone like Jordan Peterson. But while Jordan Peterson was running around the world saying that the schools are rife with all this bullshit, meanwhile Charlie Kirk was doing amazing ground game by being at the schools and debating people that just probably weren't equipped to have the conversations that he was having, or he was using divisive rhetoric to make it sound like he's more intelligent than them. Because at the end of the day, you got 3 pools of things to pull from. One of them is you can be super fact-based. Many PhDs struggle in public settings to have conversations because their level of knowledge requires some level of knowledge to be interacted with. And if you're talking with a bunch of people that know absolutely nothing about the subject matter, they're not going to be able to follow along. And then when they ask, superfluous questions or dumb questions, the PhD is going to just be like, what the fuck am I doing here? And the problem is a lot of PhD people just aren't media trained or capable of having conversations in real time on a tangible level for most people. But then you get the people that have a loose command of the facts, but they're decently rhetorically, sound. They can navigate a conversation. And then you have the con man folk that all they are just rhetoric based. If I had to pick, I would say that Charlie Kirk is probably in the second camp. This man probably has some command of some of the facts, and then he cherry picks the opinions and views that fit the narrative that he wants to push. And that's why a majority of people like Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, Charlie Kirk, hell, even Joe Rogan, all focus on some semblance of truth, or even to some extent Andrew Tate, and then they'll build off of that truth into like their own web of bullshit. And this happens across the board in all political ideologies, that the most influential people are probably those in the middle. Every once in a while you get one of the con men to slip through, people like Tim Pool, I believe, who are literally just being paid by their viewers to just spout whatever bullshit they want. And then you got people like Cat Turd that fall into that same paradigm, or probably even people like what's his fucking name? He was just on Piers Morgan, Jap Posobiec. I don't believe those people have genuine beliefs whatsoever, and they're just following the shift in culture to follow money, much like Candace Owens did in the during the era of it coming out. Yeah, my profile picture is a picture of a capture holding hands, looking at beautiful scenery, enjoying the day, being held up by men and women in uniform, supporting the ground they walk on now. Exactly, dude. Kirk tended to fall back on my dogma, says this, and it sounds sensible, and if you don't think about it too much, so I win. That kind of was, he used his religion as a bludgeon, which I'm always against. Your religion should not dictate other people's lives. It should dictate yours.
I obviously think universities are sites of positive change, and that's not just coming from me as a leftist. It's because I do believe in certain norms about free speech and about platforming certain voices that are important to platform, whether or not they're conservative.
Well, hold on. I think we should platform damn near any voice. If a Nazi wants to come in and have a conversation, I'll have a conversation with a Nazi, but it'll be tumultuous. I don't know if I can say that word anymore. I'm losing like the functionality of my brain. But it'll be a divisive conversation. Like, I will push back on their ideology, and they may not leave that conversation thinking that we're friends. And I'll even be friends with a Nazi. I can be friends with someone that does hateful shit. I'm 20% Jewish. I'm not saying I'm going to go break bread with them every day, but like if they want to play a round of League of Legends and just shoot the shit, sure, But I'm going to be challenging them every step of the way. I'm going to push their ideology as often as possible, and I'm going to try and meet them with kindness, much like Daryl Davis did. Everyone should be heard, yes. And then when those ideas suck, they should be pushed out. And then when you show people kindness, legitimate kindness, you can change minds without a fist, dude. You can't force people to believe things. You just have to show them that their beliefs are wrong. If someone believes truly heinous shit, show them they're wrong. Through action, through dialogue, through community. But doing so can be dangerous, because if they're politically effective or rhetorically effective, what if they change your opinion? If you're going to do these things, you have to know where you stand and why you stand. And the problem is a majority of people have not done that groundwork on themselves. The amount of times I've sat at the end of a bed listening to like the most depressing music while trying to decipher the person that I am. Come on, man. I've done that so many times. Sometimes I don't think the same person comes out of it. The best way to address hate is to expose it to the light, not let it play victim. Can you lead a horse to water, but you can't force them to drink? Exactly, dude. Exactly. Like, to be honest, a majority of my best friends are conservative. My parents are conservative. My sister's conservative. I work in conservative circles typically at work. I'm a blue-collar guy. I've been a mechanic. I've been a manager of shops. Majority of my staff are fucking blue-collar blokes. I like my blue-collar guys. I like going out to the bar and having a hang with them, man. And then most of their conversations are just about how hard money is to come by. I can get behind that. Like, that's a beautiful fucking sentiment that the biggest problem in their life is money. But that doesn't mean that conservatives are bad. Dude, so many conservatives, have opinions I really don't fuck with. I think we should be willing to do a reformation on our border crossings. I think we really should allow more and more people that come to America that want to come to America. I think that's okay. I think that we should make it way easier to come to our country, but I also agree that we should vet those that come here. Like, we have so many jobs and so many industries that are struggling for fucking any kind of work. But I understand why we need to vet people. I also understand that if criminals are caught and they're out here on a visa, maybe we should look into like what kind of crimes they're committing. And if they're heinous crimes where they're actually hurting people, yeah, I feel like I could sit down with you and we could have a peaceful time and have many things in common. Exactly. Deportations are not necessarily a bad thing. You have to find out why someone's being deported. What crimes have they committed? Was their due process intact? That all I know is who we let in. Exactly. Yeah, we need to make sure we're not letting in crazy people, man. Like, if you're a drug dealer, maybe you shouldn't come to our country. If you're out here fucking, raping people, maybe you shouldn't be in my country. If you're out here, shooting people or you work for the mafia, maybe you shouldn't be here. And if you're one of those people in the country and you are a natural born citizen, you should be fucking in jail, bro. It's that simple. I'm not gonna sit here and defend crooks, criminals, and fucking drug dealers. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna defend people that poison the communities that they're in just so they can make an easy buck. Fuck that. Never gonna do that. Ever. It doesn't matter their race, sexuality, ethnicity. None of those are important to the conversation. If you are doing harm to your community, you should get the fuck into a cell. I can absolutely disagree with someone and value the person's opinions as long as they are from a good place. If someone is inciting violence and is a danger, there's a line though. Exactly, dude. If like someone's coming out and saying when you start killing blacks, I'm not gonna be okay with that, dude. I'm gonna be like, bro, what the fuck are you talking about? Their fucking race has nothing to do with them as a person. I don't think we should kill anybody. I don't even like the death penalty, homie. Fuck that. I think that we should try to reform people. And what the fuck? It's crazy, dude. It's crazy.
And one of the reasons for that is because I think that things like debating chambers are really important context within which you can challenge ideas that have become dangerous to some extent. I think Charlie Kirk's ideas are dangerous. And so my goal was to essentially say, academics need to come to the forefront of public life at the moment.
Yes.
I'm not necessarily a fully fleshed out academic because I'm still in the course of my undergraduate study. What I kind of imagined was, imagine if my Cambridge supervisor stood in front of Charlie Kirk, what would he say and how would that interaction go? And so that was what I wanted to channel, that was the goal.
Is it like you've been watching and seeing that a lot of the intellectuals won't actually participate with people like Charlie, and you're thinking, this isn't actually going well?
The problem is when the narrative is promoted that a significant number of immigrants are criminals when the reality is the opposite. Exactly. Now, no one advocates for an open border. All sides agree with immigration should be controlled. It is how it's different. Exactly. Exactly, dude. Exactly, dude. A majority of the time, well, and this is why I had a hard time, because I used to run defense for the Republican argument. There are times, like 4 years ago, I'd watch Tucker Carlson, and he'd be like, I'm for legal immigration. And I'm like, yeah, dude, me too. Awesome. And then, like, when you find out, they're like, well, but claiming asylum is not legal immigration. You're like, hold on. What do you mean? Now, maybe we should do some kind of reform to our asylum seeking process. Okay, cool. We had a border bill for that they shot down. We can't do it now. And now that Trump's in power, for some reason, he's not passing actual reform to our asylum cases. I've seen one person that broke down crying and said that they would be put in chains, forced back to slavery if he was elected again. And I say that wouldn't happen because for no one would. Yeah, dude, there's so much hyperbole around Trump. But some people did end up in chains, right? Like Abrego Garcia, before, without due process, he ended up in a fucking Salvadorian fucking work prison, like where he was literally a slave. So, to some extent, some of it's true. Now, do I think that Trump's gonna go around and locking people up? I hope not, but his fucking rhetoric right now sure is goddamn dangerous.
Well, we do need people to be able to stand up there and play the rhetoric game, to actually get involved, to actually show the refutation so the world can see it.
Yeah, I think for academics, it's kind of a case of school's out for them. They need to leave their echo chambers. They need to enter the world of
Fuck yes.
Dangerous, divisive politics. They need to kind of get their hands dirty a little bit and debate with figures who are not academics and not intellectuals in any capacity, because that juxtaposition in and of itself is a powerful move.
It is. Do you think that the academics are prepared for those kinds of discourse? So,
fuck, I don't think that they are, man. I've seen some academics talk. There was like one where Joe Rogan brought on a climate guy, and then he brought on an academist. And unfortunately, I believe that guy recently just got cancer, and I think he survived it. But Joe Rogan tried to pit these two against each other, and one of them is like an extensive public speaker with like really good rhetoric that like the Joe Rogan bought into, and the other guy is just a dork that like became like an academic on climate science, and it's like, well, of course the academic doesn't want to step into that arena because he doesn't have the capabilities in rhetoric to do so. Despite the fact that he has the knowledge. And it's a bummer because a bunch of these academics are very dry. Like, they'd be talking like the whole Ben Stein. You're like, all right, dude. I can't even do, I have too much fatness in my voice. I can't even do like the monotone shit.
for instance, when they're having an intellectual argument, it's a very rigid set analytical framework. But when you're having a conversation with someone like Charlie, the dynamics are different. Rhetoric is more important. Winning the audience is more important. Do you think they're necessarily prepared for that?
No,
or is that
it
a
should be
different
looked into
mindset?
and figured out. It was,
I mean, you'd be surprised with some of the charisma.
And yeah, I do believe that it should be looked into and figured out if it was. Yeah, exactly.
That I have seen just among some of my lecturers. I think that when you imagine an academic, it's it's like an imaginary that doesn't necessarily manifest itself in reality. So, for example, when you have people like Charlie Kirk, what they will try and do is embody some kind of stereotypical element of what it means to be an intellectual. So he'll don a suit and he will say things like deoxo, whatever, you know, the full word for DNA. He will say that instead of just DNA, which nobody actually says.
If you examine it under a deoxyribonucleic acid.
And he'll say things like, oh, John Locke said liberty is not
Betty
license.
Friedan.
And Betty Friedan, Gloria Steinem.
Of Betty Friedan and Gloria Steinem and all these feminists.
I mean, first of all, this is an incredibly outdated way to understand anything at all. He acts as if these ideas are like revolutionary and new and dangerous. So in one sense, you have like the idea of an academic doesn't actually translate into what an academic means. So, and Charlie Kirk isn't the only example. You have Jordan Peterson, who's excellent at this, which is like, this is an older white guy who's wearing tweed, and he's saying, what do you mean by believe? What do you mean by God? Like, let's get...
Oh, God, I hate it when he does that. However, there's some validity to his... When Jordan Peterson is arguing for God, as someone with 2 science degrees, I will say that universities seem to be very aware of the importance of teaching communication skills and offer courses in things like science, communication, etc. I need to start seeing him show up to debates then. You know what I mean? Like, where are they? Why are all these like anti-vaxxers and fucking but that isn't going to be okay, I got you. Yeah, but like whoever these academics are need to get off their ass and get up in these debates. Like, we need to stop hearing from fucking Hassan Piker, Destiny, and Hutch, and we need to start hearing from like academics that can't come in with all of the knowledge. You know, if they have the capability to step up to the plate, they need to start doing it. The onus is on them to disprove these people, because a majority of us can't do it by ourselves. I'm not smart enough to go debate Charlie Kirk. You know what I mean? Like, I bet you he'd blow me out of the water. I would hope that I could hold my own, but, I'm not a guy with a lot of self-confidence, and I stumble on words very well. I forget fucking words all the time, bro. I'm like, come on.
Into the semantics of what our words, like what the language construction behind each thing means. And it's like that's not real. That's fake. It's in your imagination, and academics can have a lot of disdain for that.
Oh, fuck. I know what I was about to say, though. So when Jordan Peterson talks about God, he's talking about the metaphysical God and how it interjects into our society. Not everyone wants to do that. We tend to be autistic, introverted nerds who want to do research, those that can do. Exactly. But, fuck, dude. I watched Destiny, like, compile, like, a month's worth of evidence on Israel-Palestine, and man, those streams were fucking boring when I watched them. But The result was a beautiful display of someone who can argue for or against the topic at hand, depending on who he's arguing with. If you're a super pro-Pally guy that's like, I'm going to be in love with Hamas, Destiny's going to rip you apart probably. If you're a fucking Zionist that says we need to get rid of the Jews or the Palestinians, Destiny's going to rip you apart. And I've watched both of those, the styles of debates, depending on the side that he's on, like who's arguing with him. And holy fuck, dude. Out of all the people that I've seen talk about it, he's like the only one that seems to like want to address the issue at hand and try to find a way to stop the fighting. But by doing so, he's saying that people need to make some sacrifices in their position to have that conversation. And people just won't do it. I'm only a high school grad. Charlie blew me out just with his knowledge of word, and don't believe in ever think that Charlie said, but he didn't deserve. Exactly, dude. Charlie Kirk does not deserve death. I cannot say that enough. I would rather have Charlie Kirk alive as a debate opponent, even if he beats me every time, than to have him dead for his political opinions. You know what I mean? Like, I would rather lose to him in the marketplace of ideas than have him die. No matter what. I would rather have my ass beat buttery red, you know, than to have him dead. You know, even if it means I take what little ego I have left completely shredded to have that man still alive. But sick fucks do sick fucking things, man.
And they decide to push it away. Instead of saying, here's what an academic actually looks like. It's someone who overwhelmingly is more likely to tell the truth, who is well researched, who has data-backed understandings of reality.
True, too. He didn't deserve death, but that doesn't mean he was a good person. I wouldn't say he was a bad person. I bet you he was a good person in his own personal life, you know. Bet you he's a good father. I bet you he's a good husband. I would hope. If he lives by the Bible, he should practice things that are in the Bible. And I would agree. I would also say that most people that probably believe in the Bible and live in accordance with the Word of God are probably good people if they actually adhere to the Bible. You know, not judging other people, living their life virtuously, working on things to help other people. He was probably a decent, you know, because people are decent individuals, regardless of what their political stuff is. Like, I know people that are straight up super conservative, but when they see another family struggling, they're the same people that show up with like food, or, you know, they're the ones that run food banks and, you know, in their local communities, and the churches there, despite some of their terrible rhetoric and terrible stuff, are the ones that help the poor in those communities, especially in the South. You know, he was a good person probably personally to those in his lives, but he may have been a bad person for those that his message negatively infected. Like, regardless of your, like, political ideology, I bet you still treat the people in your life pretty well, or else they wouldn't be in your life. You know what I mean? Like, how is he going to have a wife if he's a piece of shit? You know, totally agree Kirk is a martyr rather than someone to point out the flaws and intellectually logical contradictions in his arguments is regrettable. You don't challenge his ideas by killing someone. Totally agree with that. Yeah, and I bet you he was a good husband. You know, he probably took care of his wife. His wife probably loved him. I don't attribute malice to someone until I see malice. Now, his opinions were disgusting. You know, like his comments about his daughter as she was, you know, SA'd and got pregnant and had forced her to carry her child is disgusting. Now, it probably falls in line with his Christian orthodoxy, but, you know, then that's a consistent argument that he's probably going to have. I bet you he would disagree with that wholeheartedly if it actually came to pass, because, like, they're the same people that say college is corrupt and it's going to make you a super crazy leftist. Meanwhile, he's got chapters in over every major college across the United States, and we're seeing more and more young people become right-wing because of Charlie Kirk's amazing groundwork. And then the same people that'll tell you that you should send your kids to trade schools are the same people that send their kids to Ivy League colleges, because at the end of the day, they know college degrees are like twice as likely to like increase your like was it double or triple the income over your lifetime by going to college, even if you go to something as simple as like a liberal arts degree. Like Candace Owens literally runs a YouTube channel saying that like people shouldn't go to college, and like she went to college for the thing that she's fucking doing. Like, and she's a millionaire because of it. Like, the sheer brutality of their stupidity, or her stupidity, is mind-boggling. And they'll tell you not to send your kids to college because they need plumbers, they need machinists, they need people that work in the automotive industry, they need people that are willing to work in warehouses, and roofers and gardeners. They need all these people, but they're not going to send their kids to that shit. They're going to make sure their kids are going to Ivy League schools, because they have the money to do it. I don't think we can assume he was or wasn't a good person. Having a wife isn't proof of being a good person. He seemed like a very controlling person for his statements. He was clearly a very person. I agree that we don't know, but I don't is saying BB, yeah. I don't know, so I'm not going to attribute malice until proven otherwise. He could have been a piece of shit. You know what I mean? He could have been the worst motherfucker on earth. He might have even deserved to die if he was like someone who beat his kids and, was like putting drugs in his society. Well, I wouldn't say deserved to die. Deserved to die is, I don't believe even, really bad people that deserve to die. But without seeing the malice firsthand, I'm not going to attribute it to him. I bet you he was a good father. I bet you, I've seen videos of him being a cute dad. I bet you he was a good husband. And until I see evidence otherwise, I'm going to probably hold that logic down. Because I believe he could separate his job from his beliefs. Or his personal life. I've seen it happen many times. Maybe I'm wrong. Yahoo is why Kirk is dead. Yeah.
And who does have a little bit of charisma. Like if you have to capture the minds of students all day long.
Yeah.
Many of whom don't necessarily want to be there.
Yeah.
That's something that requires some talent.
It sounds like what you're saying is that in the absence of them putting themselves in that limelight, of sinking that low, let's say, they've allowed a co-op of what their image is to be dictated by their enemies.
Yeah.
So they're able to say, these are like, people that they're always getting semantic and they're fixated on sociology and gender, or like they can just paint them in a certain way. Whereas if they actually got into the limelight, you would see the kind of situations which we saw just with the students. And that is that, here's the facts, like, let's go, So like, it's a matter of, it sounds like you haven't seen enough of that. So you thought, you know what, I'll go do it. So you were very clearly prepared, like so prepared that
if he was a bad father, we see his wife dancing, cheering, I would think, yeah, dude, look, we don't know. But until I do know, or I have a string of evidence to suggest otherwise, someone's political persona, or what they do for a living, I don't think defines them as a person. I'm gonna type on my phone, got big thumbs, I do. Bro, I had to buy the Note constantly, because nothing fits in my hand, dude. I bought a 3DS to play one of the Monster Hunter games, and I couldn't fucking do it because the fucking buttons are so goddamn small.
that when Charlie was seeing that you were bringing up refutations immediately, he was going, can you just do it without looking at your phone?
And so without reading your phone and just connecting.
Because he would like bring up some statistics about representation of women, and you would immediately just go, right, here's the stats. Right in front of you. Incredible preparation. At least it looks like it.
What up, Lou? What's going on, baby? So I remember when Rachel Maddow was doing a bit, and she was talking about the gender pay gap, and one of the guys tried to bring up some facts to like refute what she was saying, and she's like, don't explain the facts. And I remember, because I was mad about it, I was like, well, hold on, if our pursuit of truth is what we're talking about here, we should always bring up the facts if ever possible. But then I saw Republicans get mad about it too. So then I was like, fuck, maybe I still agree with my original statement. So then here we have Charlie Kirk saying, without looking at your phone, it's like, just because you have like a media team that feeds you information that you don't have to go read upon, like, and she's a college student and she's bringing stats and statistics with her. Excuse me? Why would you call that out? You're doing the same thing Rachel Maddow did that you complained about. What? How are you not seeing the hypocrisy here? Dude, if we're in a debate and I'm like not capable of bringing up stats and statistics and you want to bring them, fucking full send it, buddy. Bring it to me. Like, if you have something in real time that can disprove what the fuck I'm saying, let's go. You know, my girlfriend has been saying, and I've been the one bringing it up. I was like, I wish she would fact check me. You know what I mean? Like, I have that Kate Bush video that I'm trying to release. I uploaded it to my phone and I put it on her computer, and I was like, fact check everything I said. If I say anything ridiculous, like, if you have points that like prove that I'm wrong, I'm gonna edit it, put it on the screen, and like, let's go. Like, I don't give a shit if I look like a moron. I am a moron. You know what I mean? Like, let's go, baby. Like, in any debate I'm in, please bring up stats. Please bring up statistics. Please beat me over the dome. Because right now, I'm just firing off the hip. Some of my information is out of date. Some of my information is wrong. I believe in the pursuit of truth. And if that means I have to look like a dumbass, then I'll look like a dumbass. I can wear that paint and still like get off of here and feel completely fine. None of that shit affects me at all. If I cared, I would edit my videos out the points where I do predictions wrong in my music reactions. You know how many times I've been wrong about something in a Ren video? I'm like, fuck it. I'm leaving that in. I don't give a shit. I'm not going to edit anything. We're full send it. Full transparency. I'm a dumbass. Bring it, baby. You know what I mean? I don't give a fuck.
From an outsider's point of view, including myself. And I'm wondering what part of your preparation turned out to be the most valuable thing that you did? And is there anything in particular that you didn't prepare yourself for and had to act on the fly?
I mean, the first thing to say is I wouldn't classify that as incredibly prepared. I checked my emails about 12 hours before going into the debate and saw that I'd been chosen to debate him. I was already familiar with his content, and therefore I felt it was very easy to predict what he was going to say, because one of the characteristics of conservative figureheads is,
for some people, winning an argument and being seen as right is more important than truth. I want truth even if I'm wrong. Exactly, dude. Exactly. I don't doesn't like, it would be so cool if I could go around and be a debate king, you know what I mean? Like, if I showed up to an event and some people were like, fuck, Will's here, that would be awesome. But that doesn't mean it's ever gonna happen, and two, I would rather be known as the punching bag for truth being brought out than the guy that went around and eviscerated people. All it was one person who made the choice to do what he did. I agree with that. At the end of the day, the person needs to be held accountable. I don't want him to face the death penalty, and it looks like it's going that way. So shame on the father for turning him in without some kind of like leniency towards him. And shame on the pastor that said that he needs to turn himself in. Because no pastor should be like, hey man, eye for an eye. Like, fuck that. It's not up to man to judge what happened. You know, it's up to God if you are a pastor. So a father and a pastor turning someone over while both the president of the United States and the governor are saying that whoever did this is going to face the death penalty. Fuck that. And whatever father is willing to sacrifice their son for their political ideology, fuck you. That being said, we need to push for this man paying the price for what he did. If he is found to be responsible, the man needs to face jail time, and he needs to face heavy repercussions for his actions. But I don't think we should kill him as a country. That's fucking disgusting. No, fuck that. Nah. And something like this in the past, the president would probably eventually pardon the man after justice was served. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying the guy deserves a fucking pardon. Fuck that. I'm just saying, in the past, in order to end political divisiveness, we've seen stuff like that happen before. We saw that in the Civil War. Like, holy shit, man. Hey, we got another subscriber. Let's go. I feel like even if he did do it, that the death penalty is too easy. Yeah. I don't think that a country should be killing people over political ideologies whatsoever. If we're going to call the killing of Charlie Kirk evil, and it was, and wrong, I don't think that the justice system killing him because of that political violence is either acceptable either. I think that we should give him the opportunity to like pay his penance for his crime, reform through our system, and then have to re-enter the world again. And he may never receive, a joyous welcome. He might be seen by half the country as a monster for the rest of his life. But, that's the price you pay for the actions you take.
Is that they are repetitive with their rhetoric so that it can be disseminated in a really effective way among huge groups of people. Because if you think about it, like even Zoran Mamdani on the left did this really well. He was like fast and free buses, like cooperative groceries.
The man had good political game. I'm going to put that out there. I don't really like this motherfucker. I'm going to put that out there too. I'm not going to jump to be like, let's go more like, I don't know if what he's pushing out is going to work. But I did like his political game. I did like his rhetoric. This man came out and said beautiful things. I'm a little nervous because it's the same thing that a lot of them do. They put out all these, suave, beautiful sentiments, and they talk about populism and all this other bullshit till they get people to vote for them. And then when in power, they just fuck everything up because they have no fucking clue what they're talking about. You know what I mean? Now, I would love to be wrong. Hopefully this guy mixes it up and does beautiful things. I think that New York might have made a mistake putting this guy in power. Now, if it was him or Cuomo, I'd take him over Cuomo. But fuck Cuomo, dude.
Stores. Like, I'm an English person who doesn't particularly care about what's going on in New York to the same extent that people who have a stake in New York would care about it, except I knew Zoran Mamdani's slogans off by heart because he was repetitive and he was efficient with it. So it was something that was quite easy to predict if you're familiar with that content like previously. So I didn't particularly have like tons of time. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had notes, right? I would have just memorized it so that I could look as if I was on the same intellectual playing field as him, so that I didn't look like I had some kind of crutch. So, but I was prepared in the sense of I knew what he was going to say and I had thought through my responses, and luckily he said everything that I predicted he would say. And
is it simply that you are ingrained in conservative mindsets, so you were prepared to go, I know what their talking points are, so I've already equipped myself with, he's going to bring up like suicide rates with women, or he's going to like...
It is a bummer. I remember one time I watched Jordan Peterson do this debate on GQ. And he said something that I fucking loved. And then I saw it happen to Jordan Peterson, and it breaks my heart. So while he was doing this debate, or this conversation on GQ, he was talking to like a pretty strong feminist, which, much respect. Hell, I'm a fucking feminist depending on the era, or wave. Anyway, the debate or the conversation led to, she said something, and he's like, I don't know. I learned one thing about you, and I can pick apart your entire everything you're going to tell me tonight, because you're thinking down party lines, and you're like, there's no cutoff for you. It's the same thing, and basically you're an NPC, And then she's like, okay, well then make a prediction, and then he made a prediction, and then she's like, well, I don't believe that, and then she went to explain that she believed exactly that. And you're like, fuck. Okay. So here, the same thing is happening in reverse, because the more people use people like Charlie Kirk as a vehicle of information to like espouse a worldview, the more they think like Charlie Kirk. And when you really get behind somebody, a majority of people kind of fall into like a handful of groups. And like, let's just an example. Let's say Chink Uygur or Anna Kasparian or anyone from the Young Turks is going to go on a show and they're going to talk about something. No matter what the topic is, it's going to come down to the donor class. They're going to say it every time. They're going to talk about money in politics. They're going to talk about the billionaires. They're going to talk about the donor class. It could be like, why are schools suffering? Donor class, billionaires, money in politics. It's all they talk about. It's all they've talked about for fucking 20 fucking years at this point. Other than when they're out just doing rancid defense solely for Muslims, but they want to apply that same level of charitability to the other religions, because the other religions are primarily white-based, which is bullshit. People fall into just these small little camps, and their minds only stay within this one confined area, and then everything that they do and everything in their life filters through this one thing. You saw this with the Feminist Frequency channel during Gamergate, where everything was sexist, everything was racist, everything filtered through that lens, and she said it openly. No matter what it is, all things are sexist, and we need to call it out constantly. She would say that. If a guy got into a fight with another guy, sexism, because of toxic masculinity and the patriarchy. Didn't matter that the guy, crashed into him in the parking lot. It had nothing to do with the external factors that caused the situation. All of it was sexism. All of it was patriarchy. It all boiled down to this one fucking view. And no matter what happens in the world, that's the way it goes. We saw this in the last election cycle when people said, no matter what happens, if I'm not voting for Kamala Harris because she's going to be more like Biden on Israel-Palestine. We saw this in real time. People that voted for Biden, like in Dearborn, Michigan, and they voted like 80% Joe Biden, and then this election cycle, they voted like 20 to 30% Kamala Harris, and their polling suggested that it was because of Israel-Palestine. Excuse me. The majority of them voted for Jill Stein. People look through one optic lens and they stay there. I myself am no different. I look primarily through my constant war with the radical left. And that has been an important factor of who I am as a person. Because I swear to God, I have PTSD over it. Fast thinking is easy, deep thinking is hard. So most people deep think about what they believe infrequently and argue and debate using fast thinking. How do I rebut that point? Exactly. You have to dive into the weeds, dude. And the problem is, so Destiny is doing this cool thing where he's making analogies for every type of debate style, and he calls that one the lazy gardener. Lazy gardener is not willing to dive into the weeds. And in order to have really deep conversations, you have to dive into those weeds.
Bring up, this or this. And so that means that you almost had a lot of the preparation there because you are someone you associate with the back and forth. You know what their cards are. And as you said, they're very predictable. Like with Charlie, it was so predictable that as soon as you mentioned feminism, he was just what is a woman? He's got to hide it better, in my opinion. He's got to play those cards a bit better.
I don't even want to take this detour, but can we both agree on what a woman is?
Talking off feminism, that was an interesting opening from yourself. It was the first words that you said. You said, hey, I'm a feminist, and then you went from there.
So I'm a feminist.
This struck me as quite an interesting opening gambit, because saying that to a conservative or to his conservative audience, it's kind of like getting on stage and saying, hey, I'm woke, or, another one would be, hey, I'm a communist. Mm-hmm. And what it does is it allows them to go, enemy, done. I can just get rid of you. I don't need to listen to you. I know you're my enemy from the...
Fuck, dude. I have to, get into the mindset that not everyone was in the culture war with me. You know what I mean? That's something that I have to remind myself, because ideally I'm a feminist too. Definitionally, a feminist is just someone who believes that women deserve equal rights. And I'm pretty sure everyone I've ever met believes that. And I agree to that. You know what I mean? We all deserve equal rights. But there are waves of feminism. I think the first wave of feminism that fought to get women in the workforce was awesome. And it should happen. If women want to work, let them work, man. All it's going to do is further stimulate your economy. You have more produce being made. You have more money being created. You have more production at hand, more things to sell, more money in the marketplace, less control. All of these are beautiful things. If a woman doesn't want to have to riddle herself with a man, that's fine. If a woman would rather just be in love with another woman, that's fine. That's beautiful. Let people make the choices they want to make for the betterment of their lives. That being said, I need to remember that not everyone, especially on my channel, because a lot of my viewers are a little bit older, and are, maybe even around the same age I am, maybe they weren't tuned in to the Gamergate Atheism Plus era of YouTube. And maybe they would agree with my side had that information been there at the time. Or maybe not, who knows? But when you hear the word feminist, so many people, especially younger men or middle-aged men like myself, automatically turn to third wave feminism that came out and said, like, what was some of the more heinous shit? All men deserve to die. Like, that was a quote you heard all the time. It's like, whoa. That women can, like, then take back, like, their consent after the fact. It's like, what the fuck are we talking about? If a woman consents to having a sexual relationship with you and then 4 months later comes out and says, I don't consent. Okay, well, that's a little strange. Could I take away my consent at that point? Or then the people that defend the double standards where they say it's okay to hit men because they're bigger and they can take it. It's like, I'm not gonna get on board with that. Like, some of the unhinged radical shit that I heard so much through my life probably isn't going to be on the ears of most people. Like, one of the ones that I always thought was really, dude, you were a youngster to me, and some others I know, watch you. Gamergate, I remember, and I see why it happened, but holy hell, it got really, really toxic. And I'll stand by that. It got very toxic. Like, the people, they made beat 'em up Sims of Anita Sarkeesian. Like, holy fuck, dude. That's not okay. That's not okay. You can be against, like, the corruption in journalism, but that doesn't mean you have to agree with beating up on women. You don't have to play into, like, the things that she's describing to the movement. If she's saying gamers are sexist and misogynist and they are okay with abuse to women, why would you make a game beating on a woman? It goes against the very thing you're arguing for, you absolute dipshit. Used to be back in the 80s when any could support a family. It's very true. And because of the expansion of the market, prices did rise. We flooded the market with more money, and there are going to be knock-on effects because of that. Now, the idea of putting women back in the kitchen, I think, is off the table. Women shouldn't be there by any means if women don't want to be there. Now, if you're a woman and you want to have a traditional lifestyle, fuck yeah, dude. If that's what you want to do, I support you, boo. Do that shit. Come on, get it, girl. But at the end of the day, it has to be their choice. You know what I mean? Like, you can't decide for them. Women are not only as capable as men, but right now we're showing that they're kind of surpassing men. So, like, if we want to have an industry where only men are the ones producing, who's going to get into being a doctor or the medical industry? Gamergate was like 4chan and gamers collided in a terrible, defiled mess. Exactly. And you nailed that on the head, because I used to love the place that shall not be named. Rule 0 and then Rule 1. We don't talk about it. We're not supposed to. And then now that's basically Twitter. And now I'm older and I see how divisive it is, and I'm like, I used to hang out in these circles all the time. What the fuck is wrong with me?
From the beginning, because of the tribalistic dynamics that happen. Is there a reason that you opened with this? I'm curious.
Yes, because Charlie thought I was a Republican. And if he thought I was a Republican, he wouldn't go down the line that I knew he would go down. So I had to make it clear that I was a feminist. So I wore my American flag outfit. I was very friendly to him. I think he potentially cut this moment out, but I did go up to him and shake his hand and say, it's nice to meet you. And he looked at my shirt and he went, America. And I went, America. That's what happened. And he laughed. And I was like, absolutely. Like, it was this really strange moment. Then I went over, and then I thought, this is where he has his guard down. He's going to expect some reprieve. He's going to expect that I'm asking him for marriage advice. So I said, I'm a feminist. Immediately. There was a second reason as well, which is like way less strategic, and it was just that the last thing that he had said before I walked up was that feminism is basically going to kill us all.
And if you dig deeper into the Bible and you find the immorality of men with men, men with men, women with women was added later on. Bible is about loving. Exactly, dude. Yeah, and on top of that, dude, where's the music coming from? It was coming from the video. That's why I turned it down. It's loud as fuck, dude. I don't know who put that in there. That was not...
Just worst ideas.
Oh, wait, or did I get a phone call? Hold on, that could have been my phone. Did I get a phone call? I don't think so. Hey guys, I'm streaming. Like, why? Don't be calling me. Oh, I did get a phone call. Uh-oh. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. All right, let's get through this.
Is ever, which is modern feminism.
So I walked up and I said, so I'm a feminist, and that's why everybody laughed, because he literally just characterized
Chill
why
out, we're good.
I'm the devil,
Yep.
right? So that's why it was a bit of a joke as well.
Got you. So like a combination of the two, and
Yeah.
that's how that landed. When it comes to the kind of debate formats that you was engaging in, something that's quite peculiar is that you get to define the terms, because each student comes up, each person comes up, and they get to ask the question, which means you kind of get to define what you want to talk
I'll stop calling.
about.
No, it's
It
my
didn't work for
roommate.
Charlie. He took you exactly where he wanted to immediately, which he was always going to do anyway.
Yeah.
But your question specifically emphasized the role of women in public and private life and the material benefits of that.
What should women's role in public and private life look like, and what are the material benefits of that?
And I'm wondering whether or not the word material is, or the word material is something you specifically chose, and why? Why that framing?
It was specific framing because I feel like it will resonate with a lot of conservative women. So, for example, if I said to Charlie Kirk, what's your advice for me as a woman? Then he might come up with something that's really poignant. And he might say, start a family, have children, find your community, go to your local church, take root within some place that is important to you. You know, lean into your role as feminine. And what does feminine look like? It means that you're nurturing. It
Why
means
is
that you're
this
compassionate. It means you have empathy. You can
submissive?
do things that men
What
can't
happened
do.
there?
And
That's
I would
strange.
say that's very compelling. As a woman, that's very compelling to hear. However, if I said, what does that look like? And he said, it looks like housework.
I see you, bro.
It looks like
All right, give me one moment, guys. I'm going to let this play a little bit. I'm going to keep my headset on. But I'm going to make a quick phone call. Apparently, my buddy's internet got turned off. So I'm going to let this play. I'm going to be listening to it. But I'm going to mute my mic real quick. I'll be right back.
submission. It looks like dominance from a man. It looks like
Hello.
you don't get to question him.
Oh, maybe
You
it's
don't
still
get to
going.
define your own terms. You get to follow a predetermined path that was set for you by a man, presumably a religious man who has certain interests that don't coincide with your own interests, especially if he's taking some kind of fundamentalist approach to scripture. You know, if there's no room even for the hermeneutics game in evangelical Christianity, which we know.
Yeah.
So it's like, if I say to him, what does that look like to you? What are the material outcomes? What are the tangible things that women should be doing? And how does that benefit community? Then he doesn't have any room to add some purple praise.
Oh, you
to
still
make it
hear me?
flowery.
I see
That's
what you mean.
very
So
weird. It's
just to
muted.
relay that back to you. It's
Oh, well, whatever.
you know that he has an answer that's going to sound emotionally compelling, but the actual materialistic elements of it is grotesque. So if you asked your question in such a way that he had to answer with the materialistic, that forced him to say something that he was never going to say, which I assume you knew.
Yes.
He's not going to be able to say. He's going to have to pivot. He's going to have to do something because he's not going to give you the earnest answer
Yeah.
of this is what it looks like.
All right,
Because he
so
knows
you guys
it's
can
not
still hear me
palatable.
even though when it's muted, I'll step in the
It's
other
not
room,
palatable
but I got
to
the
most
headset on.
Christians, in my experience.
Very
It's not
strange.
okay.
All right,
Yeah, I
give me
mean, the
one
moment
moment,
he
I'll be right
pivots
back.
as well, that's he's down the track that I want.
Yeah.
Because he's going to pivot to what is a woman, should transgender women be allowed in sports, immigrants, whatever. It's the same. It's the same spiel.
So is it that you knew that he would pivot and you wanted?
Before I make that call, let me just say this. That is one of the most fucking annoying things when you're dealing with a conservative. Because you go there and like, hey, let's talk about fiscal responsibility. Or, it should be on Wi-Fi calling. Let's talk about fiscal responsibility. And they're like, trans and women in sport. You're like, come on, bro. This has fucking nothing to do with the topic at hand. Why do you guys bring this up in every fucking debate? Why do you bring this up every time we have a conversation literally about fucking anything? All you do is hit me with the same talking points about trans, gay. Wanted to warn you before you said anything risky. Yeah, I'm gonna have to put out my credit card number. So thank you for the save. All right, I'll be right back.
Wanted him to do it.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, cool. Talking of deflection, immediately he heard the word feminist and he bought it. You put the trap down and he went straight for it. He was like, "Oh, can we just agree on what a woman is? I don't want to take this detour, but can we just like take this detour?"
I don't even want to take this detour, but can we both agree on what a woman is?
When did you clock that he wasn't going to engage? And it sounds like from what you're saying is that you knew from the very beginning, because it's part of your preparation, that you knew that he wasn't going to engage.
There was a worry that he would realise, I'm coming to Cambridge and Oxford, therefore the students here might be a little bit more prepared than I'm used to. Therefore, maybe I should do something materially to change up the script. And so that's why I was a little bit worried. I was like, let me do everything within my capacity to ensure that he takes the detours I want him to take so that I don't have to do that much preparation. So I was during my exam term, so I didn't want to take that much time out to prep.
So when it comes to him and your worry about him being more prepared because it's Cambridge, do you think that he did any more preparation?
No.
Tell me, why would he not do the extra research?
Well, it's like if he thinks universities are left-wing indoctrination camps, it doesn't matter if it's an Ivy or not, or if it's Oxford and Cambridge, or if it's like BYU. It doesn't matter like what kind of university it is. At the end of the day, it's a university, and that's some kind of slight against God, right? So it doesn't matter.
So you felt like he just didn't need to prepare. In some sense, he's almost like a victim to his own propaganda, and that's why he thought that it was going to be like, oh, it's going to be the same as debating at some small Christian college or something like that in Texas. When it came to explaining gender and the elements that are biological, the elements that are sociological, you gave the example of tribal tattoos.
So let's say you're a member of a tribe, and that in that tribe, you have the biological female anatomy, and in order to become a woman in that tribe, you have to also get a tattoo. That's a social experience that's mapped onto biological reality.
This is what you chose to illustrate for social constructs. Why did you use that particular example?
I used it because it feels far enough removed from people's everyday reality that maybe they'll be able to resonate with the analogy. So, for example, I could have got a lot closer to how we socially treat women versus men in society by saying, for example, if you saw someone walking down the street and you were unsure what their gender was, but she was wearing a dress and she had makeup on and she was speaking in a high voice, and there were markers that you could see, potentially not necessarily directly biological, but there were a lot of social markers you could see, you would probably treat them as a woman. And therefore, what's the difference between treating someone as a woman and then being a woman if we agree that we can separate femaleness from womanhood, right?
Yep.
But that's too close to people's everyday reality that they might just switch off immediately, especially if they've already made up their mind about something that's incredibly emotive and a hot topic. So I said, imagine you're in a tribe, and in that tribe you have to get a tattoo to become a woman. That's kind of a social experience that's mapped onto your biology.
And sufficiently far removed.
It's sufficiently far removed.
That's interesting, because that's what I do with, so for example, when I bring up fallacies, I will give an example that is completely removed, and it allows them to separate it and go, okay, I see the logical problem here, now I can apply it. So it's interesting that you're using like a similar technique where it's like, no, let's go for something that's far enough removed that you can't really argue the point by conflating it or obfuscating it with things that are within our proxy, within like our immediate vision. Now, when you dropped the sociological perspective that you had, Charlie just completely ignored it and he moved on. Do you think he mentioned prostates?
Can a woman have a prostate?
Which is to illustrate he wasn't listening to what you were saying because you were giving an example that is a socially constructed element, not biological. Do you think that he genuinely didn't understand, or that it's strategic on his part?
It's strategic. He knows that there are social and biological markers that make up womanhood, because he didn't check my chromosomes before he referred to me as a female. He didn't check my chromosomes before he implied that I would be a single cat lady and not a single cat non-binary person or a single cat man. So obviously he understands that the way we interact with gender is complicated, it's variegated, there's all kinds of things that go into it. But if he recognizes that, there's a few other things that he'll have to concede upon. Like, for example, actually our biological differences aren't particularly compelling enough to then prescribe a whole bunch of roles that we ought to do. If your very makeup isn't designed by God, such as to juxtapose with a man and vice versa, then what that means is maybe not all women are destined for housewifery, like wifery, for example.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, he needs that created by God framework.
Yeah.
Because without that, there just isn't enough sexual dimorphism in.
Exactly.
And even if there was, you still can't do a normative claim on top of that. But so from his point of view, it's kind of smart in the sense that it's like, I can't follow you down that. I have to just make some joke and try and like straw man you or something along those lines. So you expected it, but you still wanted to get the point out because it illustrates to the world that's listening that they can see it happen in real time. Would that be like a fair analysis of that?
Yeah, I think so. I think my goal was potentially to just make it very clear that this is someone who doesn't really debate. This is someone who consistently pivots over and over again. And insofar as you can predict every single pivot because you know the things that they don't know, you know the rabbit holes that they can't go down, otherwise it would mess with their image, then you can follow them with it.
So if you know your enemy well enough, you know where they can't tread.
Yeah.
So you can go around there and get a load of points.
Yeah.
And illustrate what you're trying to illustrate, knowing that they can't actually interact with
I just let him go there
Yeah.
And that's enough.
That's fair. It's an observation that I've made from debating a lot of apologists, a lot of people like Stefan Molyneux, for example. Like, it happens in politics as well as religion. They almost have an incredible gift for not getting your point. And it's after so much time that I was like, well, this is either deliberate, and in which case I'm accusing them of something nefarious.
I Hassan Piker, you guys.
Stupid, or I'm really bad.
Oh, all right. Remember, everyone, our host will be back. I should think we start paying minimum wage as senators. Okay, hold on. Okay, so we got wanted to warn you before you said anything risky, and that is the moment I realized she played him like a fiddle and he was out of her league with her. Facts. Bro, the fact that he had to like just purely use rhetoric and like what is a prostate is fucking insane. Like, I mean, I've used that argument once before, but no, fuck that shit. Remember, everyone, like and subscribe. I'm not gonna read that one. Now, I have an idea that our representatives should be selected at random, like jury service. Then we vote at the end of their term on how much they get paid. Ooh. And they don't need to travel to Washington to vote. They can do it from home. Have they ever to Zoom? Nah, not a bad idea either. Shall we make bets on how many of the comments he goes back to read? All of them. And term limits. Absolutely term limits. Anyone? Anyhow, is anyone else impressed by her? I was very, hence why I requested the video. We didn't hear a thing honest. Yeah, dude. They hit me with a random $35 charge that I wasn't aware of. So it turned off the internet for my roommate. I told them I'd cover one more month of what is that shit? I told them I'd cover one more month of the internet. And now there's no reason tax buyers should be paying for senators' flights to France or out of the country. Yes, exactly, dude. Exactly. I mean, she made a lot of good points when she was talking to gentlemen here without my consistent rambling. I mean, she set Charlie Kirk up very good. She lulled him into a false insecurity with the shirt, which he likes. America, you know. And then she hit him with the feminism. Drop my thing. She hit him with the feminism, and that was pretty good. And she used that to arm him, because many people get armed when a certain particular. And also, hi, Helsa. Totally forgot to say that. Sorry, I'm a bad boy. But then, you know, she armed him to go into like a certain dialogue tree, where he's got all of his talking points, such as "What is a woman?" And then he said the stupid statement like, "Well, quite clearly, I don't want to go this way, but like, are we at least going to agree on what the definition of a woman is?" And it's like, well, there's two different definitions here. One of them is like gender, and like, what are we doing? And the fact that like he fell in line, hook, line, and sinker. Like, fuck, dude. Come on, Charlie. You have enough of your content in the world. This is a very serious live. I just dropped in because I woke up for a minute. Oh, I'm sorry. I have been watching a little more politics on stream and like video games and stuff like that, because while streaming, watching music videos have actively torched the channel. We're all woke here. I wouldn't say that, man. I wouldn't consider myself woke. I did rail against it for years. But I will say I'm an enlightened centrist. No, I don't like that, because the guy who's coining the phrase P.F. Young is running defense for Sam Hyde and Vivek, and never mind. It's still funny and fun. Still fun and funny. Exactly, we try to be. I just feel like the advanced philosophical concepts like social constructs of money, gender, as well as race should be taught with history of those stereotypical prepositions. I don't know how to say the word anymore. My brain doesn't work, and how they came to be. Exactly. I love me some politics and philosophy. Actually, I will say, you know, I started getting into politics when I was like 19 and 20, and like I started getting into the culture war, as one would call it. This motherfucker, Isimo, this motherfucker was in like, I remember he was like reading like the Federalist Papers in high school and shit. This motherfucker got into it way before I did, dude. And me and him have had some deep philosophical conversations, you know, about numerous topics. Matter of fact, we've gone back and forth many times. It's actually gotten a little bloody every once in a while, but we always we always reconnect and touch tips because we love one another. But I do, look, I will openly state there's a reason why I try not to feed my ego as much as possible. Because, oh, it's just okay, I got you. Because I do come off, actually, I will tell you this. This is something that I've actually tried to get, Destiny and Connor were doing an AMA, and I tried to get them to talk about these things. I tried to talk. I sent a message to Connor because he said, "Ask me anything," and me and Destiny will like have an opinion on it. Because Destiny is like a, he's a moderate leftist, left-leaning guy. Depending on some topics, he might be a little far left. Then Connor is like a never-Trumper Republican. He's still a Republican. He doesn't like Trump. And he doesn't like the administration, but he's still a Republican, and I have massive respect for Connor. If I'm going to watch a Republican talk about something, I usually watch Connor, because Connor, like, he'll do a 1 hour debate and turn it into a 5 hour conversation, and I fucking love that. Usually he does just one big debate video a day, and like I'm telling you, it's a 4 hour video, and he goes over all of it, including the history, the ideas of it, the pros and cons, the other side, his side of it, So Connor Counterpoints is fucking amazing, and he's one of my favorite Republicans to ever watch, and I'm so glad that his channel's starting to blow up and he's getting a lot of traction. I fucking love that. But I tried to ask him the same conversation that me and Eric had at one point. Not to rehash the entire argument, because, I mean, obviously me and Eric don't want to put our stuff into the world, but we had a conversation about the concept of evil, and dude, we argued for like 4 or 5 days on Discord. And honestly, it was very fun until, both of our egos got a little intertwined, Because I do have a problem where I speak down to people in ways. I had to learn this in real time with my girlfriend because we were talking about third wave feminism. And I said, anyone that knows anything, babe. And then I saw her face and fuck, I do the shit again. So I know that I speak in a tone of matter of fact, and it's dangerous to do that. Because I saw my girlfriend's face change in real time when I made those kind of statements. And, then we had to spend a majority of the night cuddling, and I was saying sorry a lot. And I know that the way that I use language and the aggressive stances I take on positions come off as if I'm speaking from a position of authority, or I'm speaking down to someone when I'm disagreeing with them. Which I need to find a way to navigate that if I'm going to have conversations, because I know that the way that I speak about particular topics, how do I say this, brings out more of the worst part of it, and it escalates the conversation. Because I know, for an example, Eric one time said, well, I think this, and I just came up wrong. This, and then it doesn't feel good for people when they have someone just straight up say, oh, well, that's bullshit, and here's what my opinion is. I need to find ways to navigate that, because I mean, all the way back to when we were 18, 17 years old, sitting in my car busty, me and my buddy were having a conversation about the Civil War comic in between Iron Man and Captain America. I was Team Iron Man, he was Team Captain America, and I remember I made Andy so mad that he punched out my fucking, what is that thing called? My glove box, because he says, you say things as a matter of fact, and I'm like, whoops. And it's been a consistent problem for me for years, and it's probably why I should honestly avoid debates, because I feel like it's just going to ratchet tensions up every time I talk to somebody. Because I've seen a lot of people come and go from my life because of my debate style, which is why I do everything in my power not to feed my ego. I was much nicer to debates before engaging with people online, even before the web led me to be condescending when I encounter stupidity. I become a toxic habit, but you recognizing it is the first step. Well, yeah, but I haven't found a way to navigate that. I thought after me and, my boy Eric here had our back and forths, I thought I simmered that down a little bit. But even just a week ago, I was doing it to my fucking girlfriend, who's an amazing person. And it's I need to find a way to relay information without sounding like a condescending cunt. I apologize about such a harsh word, but I do love the boys. You can learn to change that. Is this Rationality Rules we're watching? He manages to be very mild-mannered while debating hard. Yeah. This guy so far is awesome, and so is she. You will find the way. Well, I'm going to be asking my boy Eric on a way to coach me. Because I've had to come to terms with some of my debates. Like, me and Eric also one time debated the war in Ukraine, and this is when I was listening to dipshits like Dave Smith, and like I was like, wasn't even aware of the peace treaty of them giving up their nuclear weapons, and we told them that we would give them security guarantees. I got better, so you can, you know. So like I even have to openly admit now that Eric is actually physically here, I could tell him like, I'm gonna take an L on that. I look back and retrospectively, you know, I had to take L's on two things. I had a debate with a buddy named Century Reformed, who's a Lisa in Maine, about Trump's rhetoric. I used to say that you have to take Trump at his word and not at his rhetoric, because back then I used to believe that definitionally we need to stick to a person's honest words and the way that they're saying it, and not necessarily the way that we interpret it. And I still kind of agree with that, but now I'm also a little older and I realize after Trump got into office and a lot of the shit he's saying and doing, he was using a kinder messaging to achieve his goals. And then now that he's got the power, he's changing it to what his rhetoric was inferred upon by so many other people. And you can see this with Hassan Piker when he comes out and says I'm a liberal or a sock dim or a socialist. And what he really means is I'm a Marxist-Leninist that believes that we need to kill liberals and we need to be fascistic as much as possible, because at the end of the day, the right is fascist. And you're like, fuck. I'm going back to sleep. Enjoy Canada. Canada. You know I will, Elza, and I love you, and I got much love for you. I'll see you soon. I'll see you in the TTP, okay? Anyway, I've been rambling too much. I feel like I had to say a little bit of stuff because I was listening, headset on the whole time. But, you know, our girl here is putting up a damn good show. I don't know who this Rationality Rules guys is. I like him. I try not to talk about politics much more. I try to let differing epistemological issues be defined into objective and subjective issues in my own brain. Beyond that, none of it matters to me. Trump is a grifter. His only aim is to benefit himself. Once you realize that, everything he does and says makes more sense. Yeah, I used to be just one of those guys that tried to like, well, this is what Trump said, and this is what he said about like they're sending some of them are bad and some of them are good, but they're sending some of their words. It was like a stupid quote that he made about like Mexico sending up drug dealers and rapists, and I was like, well, he clearly cut out a caveat here where he didn't say all of them, but then like you turn around and see that same thing happen on the other side, and now that like people are like you know, like Joe Biden goes on and goes, America this, and he starts like a red backdrop is behind him, but technically it's the colors of the American flag, and he just happened to be sitting in the center and it was red. And then like he literally says that some of the MAGA people that don't no longer agree with, like, they believe the last election was stolen, and he literally cuts out a caveat saying that some of these people are, you know, a vast majority of the Republicans are still good people and good working Americans. But then Ben Shapiro, Tucker Carlson, you know, all like Russell Brand, Joe Rogan, and all these people like ran with the story that Biden is super divisive. And it's like, literally, hold on, you guys made the statement that we need to take Trump at his like actual language. But then when Biden literally does the same caveat, you're sitting here saying that Biden is a monster. The hypocrisy is unbound, and it's fucking insane. And like the people will say like, oh, the media's, Trump clearly doesn't care about immigration except how it can help him. That's why he said those things, and there's no more logic than that. Yeah, I agree. And if he cared about immigration, he would have Congress pass an immigration reform instead of saying EO this, you know what I mean? Because like EOs can just be undone by the next administration. If you care about the immigration issue, you should want Langford to readdress his bill and put that package in. But, you know, I dropped something. What are you going to do? People don't actually give a fuck about politics. They just wear it as like a thin veneer of like a thin veil of like, I'm deep, I'm intelligent. And it's like, no, you're not. Most of us aren't. You know what I mean? I don't think I'm an intelligent person. I occasionally say something that can be construed as intelligent, but by and large, I didn't even know what fucking cauliflower looked like. My girlfriend is showing me new foods all the time. And I'm like, the fuck is that? Is that white broccoli? Is that like... Look, I'm an idiot, dude. Anyway, let's get back to the video.
Out of communicating. And after like so many times, you're like, okay, it can't be the communication thing. And I don't think they're stupid. So it has to be that they are deliberately doing it. So is that how you've come to like a confidence level of like, I know that he's almost certainly doing it deliberately?
He's obviously not an unintelligent person. I'm also never going to denigrate an opponent by saying that they're unintelligent. Like, I would potentially say that they're ill-informed or unprepared. I said at one point that Charlie Kirk is a dropout of community college, and I got some flack for it, but it's just, I'm stating a fact, which is this is someone who's masquerading as an academic.
Yeah.
But actually, there are some requirements that you have to fulfill in order to have an academic background that's worthy enough for you to speak on certain things. And that's not to be elitist. That's just to say, for example, if you're a doctor, you probably have to go to medical school. That's not an
Ignorance, not knowing what a veg looks like, is different from stupidity. Ignorance can be fixed. Yeah, I agree. I'm just saying that after years of pushing people away for having my holier than thou approach to debate, I've learned that it all stems from an ego. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted to be considered an intelligent person. Like the books I bought, I don't think I bought them. You just used the argument from authority-logical fallacy. Well, Eric, I love you, and I want to cuddle with you. All night. We're gonna game when we're done streaming. If you're down, I think that some authority is necessary. Like the fact that Dave Smith is willing to go in and talk about Israel-Palestine to a massive degree in which he is, but then he's never taken the time as a journalist to go there, seems a little strange. We saw this on the Douglas Murray, Dave Smith debate on Joe Rogan. Some authority kind of matters. Been there, brother. But like when it came to these books, some of these I bought just so people think I was smart. You know what I mean? Some of it is terrible for show bullshit. I think that, but have you been? Yeah. I understand. Like, so one of the things that gets on my nerves is people will ask the question about, was it really 6 million Jews? And then 4 years later, they're still asking the same question. At some point, you got to pick up the fucking book or just go ask AI if you're that lazy. Like, at some point, asking questions is dangerous. At some point, we do need to trust the authorities on certain topics. Now, you should probably never use the position of authority to state that I'm going to be more right than you. But there is some level of authority that should be attributed to certain debates. Like if you're going up against a PhD and then you just start making up random facts that have nothing to do with it, they should be able to use that authority over you because, like, hold on, you know what I mean? I don't know. It's dangerous because the appeal to authority is not intrinsically correct. But there is some value in some level of authority on a certain topic. There's a reason why we have experts to begin with. There's a reason why we trust in experts. But yes, you should be able to question experts as well. And regardless of your intelligence or whatever, the appeal to authority can't be the only argumentation you're putting forward. You have to put up an actual argument. There's a difference between from authority and accepting that some people know more about something and can speak with a deeper understanding. Yeah, there's value to that. I agree with that. 100%. I don't have to be an oncologist to have an opinion that cancer is bad, but I would accept an oncologist's expertise on cancer reading. That's her point, not from authority. Exactly.
Elitist. I don't want my opponent by saying that they're unintelligent. Like, I would potentially say that they're ill-informed or unprepared. I said at one point that Charlie Kirk is a dropout of community college, and I got some flack for it, but it's just, I'm stating a fact, which is this is someone who's masquerading as an academic.
Yeah.
But actually, there are some requirements that you have to fulfill in order to have an academic background that's worthy enough.
Oh, yeah, she's also stating that, like, if you're going to claim to be an academic, like, I'll go read a book or a study on a particular thing, and then when I try to relay that information back to you guys while I'm either doing a Muse and React or a stream or something, I always preface this by saying, I'm a layman. I have never claimed to be any smarter than the average person on any particular topic. And Charlie Kirk tries to present himself as an authority figure. Well, he tried to. Unfortunately, may he rest in peace. An authority figure on particular topics without doing the actual background, training, research, or any of these things that matter. Now he was part of a group think tank that people would do the research and all the academic stuff for him, and then he would digest it in a palatable way to feed it to the masses, and then he tried to dumb it down so that people would buy into it with little to no actual education on the topic at hand, and those that aren't educated on things can look to him and go, hell yeah. He's saying he's playing an academic, but he needs to go through the schooling to be one, yet he can debate economic professors who are tenured and school them. He just said college was a scam. Well, but he's not schooling them on the facts. Typically, my boy, he's schooling, well, my man, boy is distant, like, I'm not trying to speak down to you by any means, I apologize. Typically, he uses divisive rhetoric or, you know, to appeal not necessarily to the academic, but to those watching who may not have the proper information that source out the differences between right and wrong. And then, like, you'll see, like, an academic come up behind and be like, Charlie Kirk lost the debate, but then a majority of the average people that watch would be like, fuck yeah, Charlie Kirk won. Especially if he managed to make people laugh and he was charismatic while doing it. I have wasted too long debating anti-science, flat earth, anti-vax, climate and see so often people cosplaying as academic. They kind of know what science looks like, but don't understand it. Yeah, it's always a pain in the dick, because how can you show them that they are wrong without busting out a science book and going over fact by fact by fact by fact? Again, it all comes down to charisma and the way he carries himself and that weird little smile he has with that pushed in face. Like, he's a charming fellow and he's good at it. But do your own research when you have no idea how to do research is a problem. Well, and I've seen that in real time. We've had I watched an actual video here about the increase of COVID deaths from some doctor fuck when he finds out he's just a fucking nurse. He has a doctorate in being a nurse, but he's a nurse. He's not a fucking guy that knows how to read the goddamn science. He's not a guy that knows how to read the fucking charts. And then he literally is just pushing anti-vax bullshit. And I remember one of the viewers that was watching with me who told me to watch it, because I did a compassion fatigue about a debate between Jordan Peterson and this, was saying, well, I've done thousands of hours of my own research. And I'm like, okay, but I love you, and hopefully you don't unsubscribe, but that doesn't mean anything. I've done thousands of hours of research into League of Legends. That doesn't mean what I've researched is correct. It doesn't mean how I've applied that information is correct. And it doesn't even mean that the way that I'm applying that information to my own gameplay, even if it is the correct information, is correct. That doesn't mean anything. Doing your own research doesn't mean anything. If you don't have anything to show for it, if you think that you have something to show for it, put a paper out and put it through peer review. What the fuck? You can publish things on the internet. Substack is a thing. If you have your opinion and you stand by it, well, then have someone fucking try to rip it apart. And if you can't defend your position, then you don't know your position very well. And then it doesn't matter how much research you've done. Like, I almost fell into that trap when me and my girlfriend started talking about Israel-Palestine. Well, I've read my own, and then she was like, so have I. And I'm like, oh, fuck, now where are we at? We both have read our own shit. What are we gonna do? Look, I don't know.
for you to speak on certain things. And that's not to be elitist. That's just to say, for example, if you're a doctor, you probably have to go to medical school. That's not an elitist thing. I don't want my brain surgeon to have done his own research, you know?
It's actually an interesting one because, like, one way that's cashed out is it's poisoning the well. So, like, you can just, like, before you even debate Charlie, you can point out this guy's a dropout, that he doesn't have any kind of credentials. And some people would look at that and go, well, that's just an ad hominem, right?
Yeah.
You know, like, that's that you're poisoning the well. But there's actually controversy around that in the sense that it's not clear that there's anything particularly wrong with that. As you said, the example that you gave, like, if you've got a surgeon, you may want to know this information beforehand. So there's actually a debate around whether or not it's actually a foul at all. So it just like speaks to what you're saying there. At one point following this, he said, right, so you're a feminist who also cares about men, which to me is the critical moment of absurdity. Like, it was so profoundly stupid.
Well, to be fair, a lot of people that debate feminist have a dark remembrance of the way it was. For a long time, violence against men was okay. We weren't allowed to talk about men's issues. There's a reason why a feminist named Christina Hoff Sommer, who I have no idea what she's doing now, and maybe she's not worth fucking talking about anymore, but I remember she tried to write a book like 20-something years ago, like in the early 80s and 90s, where I have known real scientists who think they have found something only to have their paper eviscerated and had to accept they wasted 5 years of research that doesn't show anything. Real science is hard. Exactly, dude. Christina Hoff Sommers was ostracized for writing a book about how schools were leaving boys behind. And she saw it starting to happen. She was a second-wave feminist that fought for female rights, but dared to start talking about men's rights. She was ostracized by her community. She was kicked out, and she got stuck having to team up with people like Milo Yiannopoulos and Turning Point USA because they're the only ones who were willing to hear what she had to say. Some of the feminist movements did more harm to themselves than anything. You know how many times I've heard the phrase, I don't get to talk about abortion because I'm not a woman? I have no right to the conversation, despite the fact that half of that child is mine, potentially. Some extremist feminists never did define what feminist actually is, though. Extremists will be extreme. Don't throw a baby. Exactly. Yeah, and that's a lesson you have to learn over time. Eventually, you start to learn that, well, one of my big criticisms at the time was that some of these feminists were coming out. There was a story called Elevator Gate, where a woman was giving a lecture on feminism. And then a man came in and told her, hey, I'll stick to reading science journals and articles looking into history and educating yourself on differing opinions is a good thing. No one can know what is right. I'm always skeptical, though. Assuming people don't know how to do research already puts people in a box that you find them arrogant to begin with. It would be uphill battle to debate a person like that. Peer review is fallible as well. Exactly. You know, so to be fair, you're kind of falling into the same logical trap I fell into back then. Remember when I used to defend flat earthers? Not their opinion, but defend it. I used to make the argument that none of us can ever truly know whether the earth is round other than a handful of people that go into space. We'll never truly know. We just trust the experts. Like, it's the same logical conclusion as to what you're saying. And it's also the same thing Jordan Peterson says. Should I point out the awkward way my comment about throwing the baby came out just as you spoke about abortion? Awkward. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's true on so many levels. That it's easy to be like, well, we just don't know, and none of us know 100%. I had to come to that realization after Trump won the election. After I saw Jordan Peterson get demolished by a dork who played League of Legends and StarCraft named Destiny. I was like, there's no way Destiny can have a conversation with Jordan Peterson and do well. And he fucking dog walked him. And then Then I saw him go up against Mui Raban and fucking Norm Finkelstein, and he fucking dog walked him. And I'm like, what's happening? Why is this dork who plays video games doing so goddamn well against supposed PhD professors and shit? And you're like, what the fuck is going on? Then it made me realize that, like, nothing we believe in is inherently true. The only truisms is that we fucking die after we're born. Like, holy shit, even taxes don't exist for people within certain brackets. So, I mean, I don't know, man. There is some level to what you're saying is true, Eric. I fully agree with that. But I feel like the experts need to have a voice in these fields. And one of the worst parts is right now they're just not participating. And I understand why, because it's like, as soon as you start talking politics, like, I release videos about music reacts, and they're typically met with a 95% plus positivity. The like to dislike ratio is incredibly high. I made a handful of political videos since I started streaming, and almost every single one of them is sitting like a 10% like ratio. Even the ones that I make that are positive and defending, like, you know, Destiny or Hutch, those ones are severely disliked. And it's like, what the fuck, dude? Another truth is it's almost certain that everything you know will be found to be wrong eventually, and at least that's what history shows. And I fully agree with that. There's always going to be information that comes out that disproves what you're doing, to some extent. You know, one day we'll probably say that the sky is green. We might change the definition of colors. Who fucking knows?
What was it like having him essentially say, you believe and practice what feminism has always believed and practiced?
You're a feminist that actually isn't just fighting for women, you're also fighting for men.
Was it bizarre, or did you also expect that as well?
I expected that because if you think about it, Charlie Kirk speaks to a specific type of person.
I can't find a diameter of the earth with a stick of the shadow of the FaceTime. Well, my dad, the simple math, flat earth is ignorance. Well, yeah. No, yeah, I agree, homie. I'm just saying it's the same type of argumentation. I'm not saying that you believe in flat earth. You know what I mean? It's the argumentation. Research is easy. I love you, man.
So, for example, he'll go on podcasts and speak with young female students who maybe feel disaffected by what's happening in society. For example, young men are polling a lot more anti-feminist.
They said that Greeks did say the sky was green and they didn't have a different color for blue. That's awesome, actually.
Than even older men at the moment. They probably feel disaffected, they feel resentful, and they'll come with emotional arguments because especially a lot of these podcasts are sold as conversational. So, for example, like Andrew Wilson's show is sold as a dating podcast.
God, I fucking hate Andrew Wilson so goddamn much. But he is so effective at rhetoric and philosophy that he can typically dog walk even people that have the right ideas and the fucking correct information. Like, he's actually the perfect vector to talk about rhetoric. He uses philosophy to back up his rhetoric, and then he uses that to do internal or to critiques of your line of thinking. He'll never really offer a definition of his own in debates because he doesn't want you to do it to him. He wants you to be on defense the entire time you're talking with him, which kind of falls in line with the MAGA movement. They use rhetoric in a way that puts you on the back foot where you're always playing defense. You're basically Obi-Wan versus Anakin, except this motherfucker is typically smart enough not to jump. He plays it very safe, very close to the chest, and he like throws out particulars that make you question things. Like when you start talking about rights, he'll ask you to define rights, go into positive or negative rights, or rights that are afforded by the government. His conversation with Dave Smith was one of the most hilarious conversations I've ever seen in my entire life, watching Dave Smith walk into blunder after blunder and being ill-equipped to have the conversation he was fucking having. He asked Dave Smith point blank, because Dave Smith is supposed to be a libertarian. Scrub what I said about the Greeks in blue. I researched, I was misinformed. He asked Dave Smith, who is supposed to believe in the non-aggression principle, he asked Dave Smith If a brother and sister who had no means to reproduce wanted to have sex, would you let them? If you believe in the non-aggression principle, you have no choice but to answer on that question. That's what libertarian is. Other people do not get to tell you what to do as long as you are existing within that principle. Dave Smith doesn't know what the non-aggression principle or the NAP was before he went into that debate while calling himself a libertarian. Libertarians believe in the non-aggression principle, and it is the cornerstone of libertarianism. Liberals also believe in something very similar, but they also believe in strong social security nets and keeping the government around. So he wouldn't bite the bullet because he's a Christian. It's like, hold on, your morality or your religion has nothing to do with this. If you are a libertarian and you think that society would be better run as a libertarian, left-wing libertarian is the NAP, right-wing libertarian is more of, I know that word, I'm not going to try and read it, deontological ethics. Okay. I mean, if you want to say that, I'm not going to disagree with you because I don't know enough about the difference of them. But usually left-wing libertarianism is just being a liberal because they believe in pretty much the same thing. They're massive defenders of property rights, individual liberties. They believe that, as long as you are, not fucking with one another, do whatever you want. But then they also typically believe in social safety nets. But you know what? Maybe my reading of that could be wrong. But I do believe that the NAP is, pretty important. But then you have people like Andrew Wilson who believes in divine command theory, that believes that God tells you what to do and you use the Bible. And then because he would never bite the bullet or he would dive into these things, one of the ones that was really funny was that he said, okay, so do you think laws govern our rights or something like that, something along those lines? Or if someone makes a law that intrinsically makes it correct? But then he used, what if we passed a law tomorrow saying that slavery was back on the docket? How would you argue against that? Well, you'd have to use a moral framework to make the argument to say that slavery is bad. And in order to make a moral framework, you have to appeal to what? Now, Andrew Wilson's idea is that you have to appeal to Christianity, which is crazy because Christianity defends slavery to some extent. And he also has the belief that all structures of existence or belief or laws or morality comes from the Bible, which I will never agree with. But, and then what's his name wasn't just equipped to have that conversation despite saying that he's a debater and he's been in the political game forever. You know what I mean? Andrew Wilson is a scary motherfucker. I would say I think it's just someone applying their own dogma, pretending to be a libertarian. That's just me. Yeah. Yeah.
Podcast. So you have these young girls, a lot of them are on OnlyFans, a lot of them are just going there to promote themselves, and they're not there for some kind of intellectual conversation or debate. They're there to say, well, yeah, like, screw these men, I hate men, I can't stand them, I'm so pissed off with them. And they're not...
Well, it's not just them though, little lady. We did have Big Red, we did have the guy that caused Elevator Gate where he asked a feminist after her talk to go out for coffee one time, and she went home and made a YouTube blog and video about it, and then costing the man his job. Like, I remember that. All that shit did happen. We did see a lot of people say that if you're not willing to date a trans person, that makes you a transphobe. And it's like, having a preference for your sexual partners is not that crazy. Things get really sloppy and really messy, man. Now, it is dope that more and more women are, being accepting to the plights of men, mainly because now there's just so much evidence to suggest that men are falling behind. Their suicide rates are out of control. Women are more likely to want to commit suicide or attempt suicide. Men are more likely to be successful. Men are more likely to be the victims of homelessness. Men are more likely to be completely alone. Again, we've talked about this before, that a majority of men under the age of 30 or is it 35 are more likely to not own a home, are more likely to be unemployed, more likely, there's just so many crazy things about it. And then if you were to flip the script, and then more women are more likely to be married under the age of 30, more women. Like I think it's almost double women are likely to do that. Careful with the little lady. Remember that you don't talk down to people. I apologize. I mean little lady because I'm 6'3". Well, I say I'm 6'3", but these days I'm a little more 6'1". Gravity has been pulling the girth down a little.
Obviously, Charlie Kirk will see that and probably think, this is what feminism means. This is what feminists are going to say. If I say, what, you fight for men as a feminist, maybe she'll laugh in my face and say, no, of course I don't. But it's like, that's not the realm of academic feminism. That's not policy proposals. There's not a bunch of Instagram influencers sat around a table at Parliament thinking like, yeah, like we really fucking hate men. And like, I really don't.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, basically impossible to buy a house now. Majority of home buyers in the U.S. are over 60, I believe. Right, but I mean, I think it was 64% of women under the age of 30 own a home. Meanwhile, only 30% of men under the age of 30 own a home. That's a little crazy. A majority of people that are graduating college are women. A majority of people actually entering our scalable jobs are women. Women are already, I say this as a home buyer that bought pre-COVID reference during COVID. No idea what people are buying houses nowadays. I don't fucking get it. I looked at house prices and my fucking balls dropped, dude. I was like, what? You know what I mean? Oh, the opposite. I think they sucked back into my body. Jesus. That's crazy. Higher than I'd expect. Yeah. Like, and then a majority of women that are, and you can fact check everything I'm saying. I did look at this up not too long ago, but I could totally be, wrong here. I guess Immanuel Kant shaping a lot of Western philosophies, laws, and social study norms through ethics, dogma, than doing right thing no matter the consequences against the net. That was my point. Hell yeah, Eric, always bringing in the actual philosophical deepness. Hammer my nuts, bro.
Don't want to do anything about this. Like, it's not reality, like in terms of policy, you know.
Yeah, it's what
I was going to say that a majority of those people had an effect on society at large, though. Even content creators, like people like Hassan, affect policy. People like Anita Sarkeesian had a dramatic effect on the games industry, and we saw more and more games essentially go woke. What happened was games started underperforming, underselling, and there were real consequences for the gaming industry to where now we're seeing massive layoffs. At this point, hundreds of thousands of people have lost their jobs because they drank the woke Kool-Aid, if one would say, and they made worse games and worse products for it. In 2022, single women own 50% of the nearly 35 million owned by unmarried. Well, single men own 42, so you were close, but over 30 is possibly wrong. Okay, I could, you know what I mean? I was just reciting stuff that I heard, I think, from Bill Maher, and that was a few years ago. I think during COVID, he made that video. Because Bill Maher talked about the plights of men that people weren't talking about. For those of you that don't know, Bill Maher and Sam Harris are my two, if you want to call me a dick suck, you can. People say I'm a dick suck for Destiny, and you know what? Maybe these days I come off that way, and I apologize. I do try to push back on Destiny where I can. But Bill Maher and Sam Harris, I am a dick suck for those men. I have yet to... I mean, I disagree with some of the stuff that Bill Maher says, because I know he's a fucking vegan and shit. But by and large, I like what Bill Maher is putting down. But some of his opinions are a little wishy-washy.
What's particularly interesting is that if, say that I was debating Christians, as I do, and I was to go on stage and I was to make out that like, oh wow, you're a Christian that doesn't believe in creationism. Most Christians don't believe in creationism.
It's a minority of
but I would be able to like take the worst of the worst and present it as if it's like the whole, which is what he's essentially doing. Like you may find like some, I wouldn't even call them feminists, but you can get some people that are just, they do hate men, like straight up. And he wants to take that and elevate it.
You may also need to dig into those stats. I have not, but sometimes homes are in one person's name for tax purposes, and that can skew things. Exactly, that's very true too. I gotta find the study that he was referencing because he brought it up that one time, and I did look into it, and I saw that I was like, "Oh fuck, Bill Maher's right," but I don't know how deep the study went, and I can't remember much about it because I think I watched it like 3 years ago or 4, because I think I was still living in the garage. Because I lived in a garage a few years ago, and a lot of my original videos while doing Pentakill, I think I was living in a garage. Yeah, I was living in a garage back then. You could see that the wall was made out of tarp tarp or masking paper. I remember looking into it and seeing a lot of stuff. I was like, holy fuck. But back then, a lot of people would consider me a radical centrist.
And as you were saying with Andrew Wilson, and he wants to make it so that it looks like it's the norm. But if I was to get on stage and I was to make a statement like what he did, it would be embarrassing to me. And I would get called out by my own side. But it's not something that happens in his echo chamber. He won't get called out from it, presumably because...
That's very true. How come the right isn't calling out Nick Fuentes and Sam Hyde when they're saying really, really gross shit? How come the right isn't calling out Candace Owens? And if it is, like, why is it not the mainstream people? Why isn't Ben Shapiro ripping Candace Owens apart every fucking day? Like, you can go and watch Destiny, Hutch, a handful of people that are on the left. Every day they make videos against Hassan when Hassan says unhinged, crazy shit. We see a lot of policing on the left, but we don't see a lot of policing on the right. And I don't know why. It's very strange, and I don't like it. That breeze feels fucking fantastic. But you need to stop blowing so hard. You're going to affect my microphone, bro. I need to go get a pop filter just for this shit.
his audience also doesn't understand.
The right is much more tolerant to people saying crazy shit as long as they say that stuff that aligns in general to them. And as long as they show up to vote, I don't think they give a fuck. Meanwhile, people like me and Destiny are like, we need to push out Hassan's people. And even though that's going to negatively impact our total voting numbers, it's going to empower our base and give us a stronger leg to stand on. For instance, Fox reporters recently suggested that lethal injections for homeless people. He apologized and that's it. Yeah, didn't they just fire a guy from one of the major news network? Historically and globally, the left tends to tear itself apart by splitting hairs. Exactly, and I've noticed that. Like, honestly, even when I was against the far left, a majority of the time, if I had an enemy in like some kind of environment, Monty Python had a skit about that in The Life of Brian. Yes, dude. I remember one of my favorite parts, if I saw like some big leftist guy come up and say a lot of unhinged shit, I was like, well, just give him some time. People will find out that maybe one time he was mean to a woman and then they'll attack him as being a pro-rape apologist or something like that, and you won't have to worry about him anymore, and he'll disappear. And time and time and time again, it happened all the time. It doesn't matter. Eventually, the left will cannibalize itself, and it doesn't get anything done. A majority of people, a big chunk of people, a chunk of people on the left do not care about political power, but Fox is still okay with reporting wanting to kill homeless people as long as he doesn't say it on air. Exactly. Like we saw in real time, there was a guy that was just naming the stuff that Charlie Kirk said, and he was fired from a broadcast. And then meanwhile, the people at Fox will say, unhinged shit, and no one cares. There is a massive double standard at all times. It's fucking bullshit. But again, if you ever want to see someone on the left fall out, you just let them stick around long enough. Someone in their audience will attack them for something. Like the fact that, because I do enjoy trans women, I do enjoy the beautiful package and the whole ensemble. Instead of calling me an ally, they call me a chaser, which is an insult. And it's no different that the Republicans used to call me when they called me fag. You know what I mean? What do? The left hates me because I enjoy the trans models, and the right hates me because I'm going against God. Yeah, and it's like, okay, cool. I don't get the win here. My apologies. Awesome. Great. Wonderful. And they don't understand that they're participating in the same culture that they bastardize. It's okay, dude. You're acting just like the radical right. Thank you so much. You're using whatever fucking viewpoint you have to push insults over dealing with a person. Thank you. You're so awesome. Eventually, it all comes full circle. But on the right, they don't have to deal with that. I think less people on the left hate you than people on the right. Very true. And yet people on the right primarily make up a majority of my friend circle. People on the left typically don't stick around very long once they find out that I'm not like gonna like bend over for Hamas. Like, I will defend Palestine, but I'm not gonna defend fucking Hamas. And they're like, oh, you're pro-genocide? You're like, nah, dog. Nah.
Understand the first thing about feminism either. Is that your experience?
Yeah. If you ask, this is the thing, like I could have played this game myself and said, well, can you define feminism? Can you define this? Or you don't even know what feminism means. But I just think that makes me look a certain way. And I don't want to look as though I'm lording it over someone too much, especially because Charlie Kirk's title when he posted the video of our debate was Cambridge Feminist Resorts to Insults. Personally, I don't think that I did that.
Yeah.
I struggle to find, and even some of his own fans are commenting saying this was a bit of a clickbait title.
Yes,
She
it
didn't
was. Yeah,
insult
yeah.
you at all. She maybe insulted your arguments.
Yeah.
Maybe she laughed because you think sociology isn't real, even though you're a sociologist for a living, basically. Like, you know, but so I wasn't going to like particularly lean into this explanatory framework. I was rather just going to focus on the issues of what I care about.
That's interesting because from my debate style, I would look at it and I'd go, I am going to wipe the floor with you on this. So I would be like standing there going, hey guys, this person, he goes around all of these universities.
Excuse
he
me,
stands
whoa.
up and he says feminism is terrible, and he does it all over the world.
Fucking Red
and yet
Bulls,
what we've
dude.
just had is
Well,
a
they're not Red
revelation
Bulls.
that he doesn't know the first fucking thing about it. Like, how embarrassing. Like, what the hell? Before we move on, Charlie, do you want to just own that? Like, that's such a profoundly ignorant, stupid thing that you've just said. And then I might like use an example which would illustrate it. And I was wondering, why is it that you didn't want
Conservative means you must have a group of people to oppress or conserve against. That's basically what I'm against. As long as you're an adult and not harming anything, do whatever. Exactly. If that's your experience with your friends, no offense, but your friends like that are weird. Some of my best friends are weird, though, and I'm weird. Exactly. For me, it's hard to maintain relationships with people that are incredibly on the left. And the deeper on the left they go, the harder they're going to be around. Because, unfortunately, eventually, they too, like everybody, will start parroting talking points. And then when you give them pushback, it's called, there's actually a fallacy about it. I think it's called like it's about if me and you were supposed to be on the same page, but we have a minor disagreement, that minor disagreement is exacerbated into a major disagreement because now we're both wondering how we can have this disagreement while the baseline is the same. Yeah, I don't care what my friends want to bang unless they're trying to bang me or talk about it in depth. Oh, man, dude. I kind of wish more of my friends did want to bang me. I'd feel a little prettier, you know what I'm saying? All right, I'm joking. Look, I think it's the bigotry of small differences, I think is the technical term. I think that's what it is, maybe. I don't know. But those small differences do the opposite of compound. They expand into a major difference or a major fracture about how do me and you agree on so much, but right here we disagree. And then eventually it comes down to like purity testing, and that's where the issue really falls. Like the grace they show extends only so far. I don't know. Maybe I just had bad people in my life. I don't know. Or people just in general are bad, and then we always find a reason to like push people out. That's why I always say things about transactional relationships. I feel that when a person like no longer fulfills the transactional thing that you brought them in for, people then have to either find a new reason to keep you around or just eventually kick you out.
want to capitalize that and humiliate him? You've kind of slightly answered it, but can you expand upon that? Like, why did you not take the opportunity?
I think it's partly because as a woman, that's called being a
I
bitch.
might speed this
Yeah.
up a
So-
little bit.
if you're having an intellectual discussion and
Yep.
with Charlie Kirk, if it was you versus him,
Yep.
and you said this guy doesn't know the first thing about feminism,
Yep.
Charlie would probably say, absolutely not, you're so wrong, you don't know the first thing about feminism, and you would have that argument. Whereas if I said this guy doesn't know the first thing about feminism, a few people might roll their eyes.
Well, and see, to go in there and say you don't know anything about feminism, that is going to create that dynamic of an appeal from authority that automatically makes people tune out from the conversation. And you can't do that. If you're going to have a conversation, I get frustrated hanging out with MAGA people as they make it their identity, but also like to people that subtle race. Yeah, exactly, dude. Exactly. And it's weird too, because I'll be in a shop and I'll be like, yo man, hand me that oil filter. And I'll be down there and like taking up the oil filter, and a guy come up and be like, oh man, I was watching Fox News last night and they brought on some blank, you know, let's just leave the word out. But and then I'll be like, yeah, that's not cool, man. What did he say? And they'll be like, oh, I don't remember. I don't listen to that horse shit. And you're like, Taco Bell? Like, just trying to change the conversation, you know? Because, like, fuck, dude, what do you do? Fuck.
It's insane. She's kind of shrill. She's kind of annoying.
Yeah.
What? She's so superior. She thinks she's so much better than him. He does this for a living. What does she do? She probably has cats. You know, probably doesn't have a boyfriend. She's probably so lonely. All these personal attacks come as an onslaught. So it's really important when I stick to the issues. Like, it's super important.
That's fascinating. So it's basically a privilege that I have because I'm able to do
Potentially.
it because I can just do this. Whereas if you did exactly the same thing, you're aware of the dynamics where it would look different, and so you have to play that game and you have to get involved in that sense.
Well, it's not necessarily based off of gender, though. I'm pretty sure if you did those same things, a handful of people are just going to write you off as a dipshit, too. You cannot make appeals to authority when having a conversation. The appeal to authority comes when they are just blatantly wrong on certain particular moments. Like, I've looked at the data, like Jordan Peterson does, and be like, well, I have 5 peer-reviewed studies. Did you look at my data? You know what I mean? Like, there's a difference. When someone makes... Because, like, by saying I looked at the data, they're making an appeal to authority themselves, and that's when you got to drop the fucking hammer about your level of authority on the topic. I've done my own research, is an appeal to authority, because you're saying the person you're talking to hasn't done it. It's the same thing. People do not like to be talked down to, as I've learned over the course of my life. And to do so is a detriment to the pursuit of truth. So if your goal is to have an honest conversation about something, you have to avoid the appeal to authority. But if someone wants to play in that domain, make sure you have the bigger stick. Match fire with fire. Unless it's violence. And then if you think you're about to go extinct, fire with fire.
That's fascinating. Well, I actually think that like the technique that you did was particularly effective because what you kept doing is allowing him to push the conversation, and you met him and gave him refutation. He moved on. And whereas like my debate style would be, I'm going to hold your feet to the fire so you're embarrassed and then we'll move on, I'll embarrass you again. You just like was just going down this path and he had to keep pivoting and keep going. And that obviously worked. It's one of the reasons I covered it. It's one of the reasons you got the praise. Like, was that deliberate? You just thought, I will follow him with every single one and I will keep exposing. Is that the plan? Is that your debate method as in general? Like, can you speak to essentially that style and whether it was deliberate?
Generally, no. But when it comes to people like Charlie Kirk, you have to think about how you imagine they are as a person. And because of Charlie Kirk's beliefs, i.e. that he believes there are specific biological differences between the sexes that you should respect and potentially enforce through some kind of theocratic autocracy.
I mean, but I believe there are biological differences between sexes. There's a reason why we categorize people differently when they do transition. There's a reason why we call women cis women, and then we call trans women. There's a reason why they transition and why we have to take differences of hormones. That's not to say that trans women can't exist and trans women aren't women, but we understand the difference of category here. There are biological differences between women now, or women and men, and I think those differences matter, and I think that they're a beautiful thing, and I think that some people can fall not so neatly in the paradigms that already exist, like the pre-existing boxes. That's not to say that we can't be malleable and change those things, but just as trans people find a way to point out those differences when they are talking about cis women or trans women, there's a reason why they differentiate those things on a public scale. So it's not necessarily intrinsically wrong to talk about the biological differences between people, as long as we're still willing to like give people the grace to pick however they want to be seen. I mean, I myself get a little annoyed with the whole non-binary folk. Not to say that I disagree with their style, but I've seen some people push that to an extreme that just doesn't feel correct to me. Like some days they want to wear pink, so they're going to call themselves a girl, and you have to match that. And the next day they're going to wear blue, so they want you to call them a guy. And Please look at my bracelet to identify my sexual orientation. And it's like, guys, this is getting too complicated for little to no effort on my part. Like, I just want to go buy lettuce or groceries or a Red Bull at the gas station. I don't have to do a puzzle every time I talk to you. Just tell me what you want me to call you, and I'm going to call you that. But stop asking me to put in extra work in the process. Like, I already give a little enough a fuck about the people around me outside of my personal life. Like, I'm just trying to get shit done. I'm busy. I'm at work, where I'm at, I'm trying to live my life. I'm just trying to buy some fucking ramen here, dude. I don't want to have to sit here and decipher which belt you're wearing today. There's a reason why people start pushing back on this, is because it starts to become annoying. Now, I agree that non-binary people exist and we should treat them with the fullest respect. But at some point, you have to ask what you're asking me to do. There is a difference. You may not like what they do, but would you deny their right to do it? No, I would not deny their right to do it. But if they start asking me to do a bunch of ridiculous shit, I'm going to opt out and just never talk with that person ever again. And if they ask me to do anything, I'm just going to stare at them, because I'm not going to participate in lunacy. Not that what they're doing is lunacy, the fact that they want me to jump through like 9 hoops in the process. I don't think that we should be ridiculing non-binary people or anything like that. And I don't think that we should be treating them any differently. But when they ask me to treat them differently, depending on how they feel that day, I'm not playing that game. If you want to be a woman, I'll call you a woman. If you want to be a man, I'll call you a man. But I'm not going to look at your bracelet to determine on which one you are today. Now, those people are already such a small minority of a small minority of a small minority of people. Because even a majority of non-binary people just want you to call them they, and they don't fucking play this game where they're asking you for special shit. And that's okay, that's fine, I'm on board with that. If you want me to call you they, I'm going to. I'm bad enough to remember people's names at any time, let alone people with a complex gender, but I wouldn't go out of my way to misgender. Yeah, I'm not going to try to misgender anyone, but I don't think that your gender should switch on the fly daily. I think that you should pick a lane, ride that lane, and if like a couple years later you want to switch to a different lane, or a couple months later, fucking switch it up, bro. Do your thing. But like, people are going to get lost in the sauce. Like, we are complex creatures, but we are not complex in our articulation of ourself in the world. We're just not. We are looking for the fastest means and social identifiers as possible. If we look to a person and they have short hair and a stocky build, we're going to assume they're men unless they have other physical traits that point it out, and vice versa. Does that mean it's okay to like judge people that way? No. But the more complex you make a thing, the more or less likely people are going to participate in that thing. And we can look to music as a good example of that. A majority of music that is popular is music that is bland, boring, repetitive bullshit that has no depth or thinking process required to interject it. And then you get music like Ren's that is deep, complex, that talks about terrible themes that are beautiful to bring to the forethought. They talk about the medical industry, what it means to be left behind, suicide, and so many other things that dive into so many more complex issues that require some level of thought. And then eventually you hit a point where it's like, okay, if you want to be super complicated in what you're putting into the world, less people are going to interact with it in the way that you want them to. It's just that simple. Now, I'm not saying anyone should ever be mean to a non-binary person ever. They are people, they exist, and we should value them just the same. But at some point, I'm going to have a cutoff limit with the amount of things you ask me to do. I'm never going to intentionally misgender a person. And I'm always going to treat people in social settings as kind as possible, because I want people to be kind to me, bro. I know I'm slow. I know I'm in the way. Like, I'll move out of the way. I ain't trying to be a guy that halts progress. But at some extent, we hit a point where I'm fine with people who feel different day to day, but people will make more mistakes, the more complex to know or refer them, as long as they're cool with mistakes, all good. Exactly. But then, I remember one time I was on Blue Sky, and a lady was coming out and complaining about Ethan Klein being sexist because he's suing 3 women. And I'm like, well, hold on. He said in his lawsuit video why he was suing them, because they infringed on copyright. Okay? This isn't because they're women, as long as we call anyone dude. Yeah, dude. Exactly, dude. But then like she had an avatar that was like of a fucking. She was a furry. Her name was like April Doe or some shit, and she said she was trans and she was gonna read my book on stream and rip me apart, and she never did it. But you know, she made all these claims, and I didn't know what her sexual orientation was. Her fucking avatar was a goddamn deer with an afro. I don't fucking know what that means. So I think I made a joke about something, and then she's like, "I'm a woman," and I'm like, "Not bad." It was like April something. I don't remember, but like she had like a fucking deer as her thing. I can't remember. And she's like, "How dare you?" I'm like, whoa, I don't know what your gender is. I'm not paying attention to that. One, I can't even tell. You could click my profile. I'm not gonna click your profile to respond to you on Twitter, dude. What do you mean? What the fuck are we talking about? I'm gonna just see what you said and I'm gonna respond. I'm not gonna go out of my way to do a background check on every person that we're talking to. Put that shit in the message or whatever, bro. I don't know what the fuck. I always try to assume accident over malice. But I also know when you face discrimination and hate, it's likely to make you assume malice when there is none. So I understand the anger too. No, I understand it. But even when people have done mean things to you, how do you say this? When the chips are down, right? Who you are as a person is defined how you are in situations of crisis. So if I come out here and tell you I like honesty and I want to be upfront and honest, and then I get into a debate and a guy presents to me with honest information and he proves it to me, and then I fucking go, fuck that, where does this source from? I don't trust this. At that point, you can assume that I'm not a truth-seeking person. At that point, you can assume that I'm a person that is rhetoric driven and I'm trying to get a win in the conversation. When the chips are down, if you are a good person, you live through your beliefs. And if you believe that you shouldn't be judging people by this or that or whatever, to do so and attribute malice to someone that you think might be doing that, or feel that someone might be doing that without evidence to substantiate your claim, you're participating in the very thing you're complaining about. So I agree with what you're saying, 100%. And it is easier to understand why they might be angry, especially because this discrimination is bad and we should all stand up against it. But to discriminate back off of false information, sure, always judge people as individuals on the same page. Yeah, exactly. All right, let's get back to it. I keep pausing. This has been like a 3-hour video. I apologize, guys.
He's probably not going to view me as a woman as someone who's going to attempt this debate on the same ground as him as a man. So he's probably going to think, she's going to allow me to take this conversation anywhere, and that's how I'm going to win. And actually, I was leading him to a similar conclusion the entire time by allowing him to pivot and allowing him to believe that he won.
It's interesting. It's like using his strengths against him, or his perceived strengths. Like he thinks that he's like, I'm in control. And you're like, well, I know that you're going to think that way, so I can actually, if I play my cards right, lead you exactly where I want, which you did. Which is why you were immediately ready with your reputation. If the patriarchy
side quest be derailing me today, bro. That's all I can say.
Harms both men and women, which it clearly does, as you articulated to Charlie, why do you think that so many men still instinctively resist feminism?
I think because what feminism seeks to do is to recognize the extent to which the personal is political. And given this, what that means is that now men no longer have a safe haven within the home through which they can take back some power. So, for example, I think a lot of men have grievances that are valid and worthy of consideration. For example, income inequality, employment problems, inflation, financial burdens, emotional stigma. All of this stuff is totally worthy of thinking about, and a lot of feminists do think about it quite a lot. And the reason why...
I knew it would be long, but I hope you're enjoying seeing how she approached the debate. Oh, no, dude, her debate approach was awesome. See, typically, I would have followed more in line with his debate approach. And no, the reason it's taking long is because of me, not the content. Actually, you're getting me to talk about a lot of things, which I think is great. I used to think holding the up until right now, actually, she's actually changing my perspective. The debate approach of calling someone and holding their feet to the fire, like, you know what I mean? Like, hold on, the fuck did you mean by that? Can you walk me through that? Can you answer my fucking question? That's how I would approach a heated debate, or a debate with someone that I know is going to be contentious, or someone who I know is going to be lying. And that was always my debate prep. I mean, I prep for debates before I don't even go on them. You know what I mean? Like Wick TV will put out a debate topic, and I'll go like, I want to research this, and I want to be prepared in case he says yes, and I get to come on the show. You know what I mean? But that being said, that's how I would do it. I would be like, hold on, bro, you didn't answer my fucking question. How about you answer why you asked what is a woman? What are you inferring here? And I would just like hammer in on that one point. I wouldn't let the conversation move at all. And now that I'm seeing the way she handled, her debate, she's like, nah, dude, go on all the tangents you want. I'm prepared. I don't give a fuck if you do the dodge and the bob and weave and the obfuscate. I'm going to point out in real time on how you're fucking ridiculous by just matching every point you have and calling it out in a way that just makes you look fucking foolish. It's a different style than I would ever attempted to accomplish, but there's kind of like a level of confidence in that, because like the way that I'd approach a debate would shut down the debate ultimately, because I'm not willing to move past that, much like the guy said he would do. Now I probably wouldn't go in saying you know absolutely fucking nothing. I probably wouldn't do that because it's not going to win you any. Exactly. She is a breath of fresh air for me in thinking on how to debate. Yeah. Obviously you don't want people to get defensive immediately. Now, the person you're debating is not usually the person whose opinion you're trying to change. You can't really do that. No matter what, people, especially on camera and especially in front of an audience, people are not going to try and change their opinion in real time. Especially if they get paid to be there for a particular thing, especially if they have an audience that wants them to do the debate a certain way. But the reason why you have those debates is because it might convince people that are watching. It might convince people that like, oh, the guy I've been, in the corner of for so long doesn't have what it takes to defend his points, or why is he dodging this question? And I always thought that was a really good way to just hammer home a point, to like showcase that like, why is Charlie not answering this? Clearly he should answer this. Kind of like the Jordan Peterson Jubilee video, where he wouldn't really like defend Christianity in any way. He just wanted to like internal critique other people and then claim that they didn't know what they were talking about, because obviously that there's like some through line for God that we accept through all societies, which to some degree you can argue whether or not it's Christianity or not is a different thing. We can argue that like we do have like an intrinsic desire to want to help one another and to like community and all that, and religious experience through music and like psychedelics, and maybe it's like the voice of the internet or something. Spot on. You're not going to change the person's mind. They're engaged in fast thinking. The audience is who you want to hit them with yeah, exactly, dude. Exactly.
How men gain their power in that system is by, within the home, having some kind of oppressive control over women. And that doesn't mean all men are oppressing their wives. What that means is that a certain framework of patriarchy that people like Charlie Kirk like to reinforce. For example, Charlie Kirk's wife speaks about how she wants to create a soft landing pad for when he comes back home, and about what her role is, and how it's a really rigid role and specific one that she has to follow. So insofar as all of this is like encapsulated within Charlie Kirk's ideology, and an ideology that's becoming like more and more popular among young men, I think that's probably why they're going to resist patriarchy being harmful to them. Because at the same time as we have socially regressive things that are happening, workers' rights are being decimated, the welfare state has been cut, you have neoliberal policy programs that basically aim to reinforce unequal relationships between men at the top and men at the bottom. The only people who would be below a man who's at the bottom would probably be a woman who's in the same position. And I think that when you have this like working class who feel so disenfranchised, and the only place for them to turn where they can attain any kind of powers within the home, then maybe they're more likely to turn to people like red pill or super Christian or theocratic men.
So do you think men are more susceptible to that than women?
No. I'm not bioessential.
I would. What the fuck? Men are way more susceptible to that, especially if they're not going to fucking school. Especially if they're not engaging in critical thinking. I will say this. The smartest people I met were typically men, and the dumbest of the dumbest people I've met were typically men. In the middle, I think men suffer. I think they're better at the extremes. Either the dumbest fucker in the room, or they might be like a genius, but they whatever. And women, though they're capable of those same feats, I think a larger number of those women are just more emotionally resonant and more emotionally available with a level of higher emotional maturity, because they also mature faster. And especially if they're dealing with the current economic situation, they want someone to blame. Exactly. Because unfortunately, that's the way that we break things down. We are always looking for someone to blame for our hardship rather than ourselves. It's easier to point the finger than it is. Listen to her reply on this first as a tip. All right, maybe I'll shut up.
Theocratic men.
So do you think men are more susceptible to that than women?
No.
No.
I'm not a bioessentialist. That's why I'm a feminist.
Interesting. So why would it be that men are the ones that are resisting it more? Because women are in the workplace, right? And women are experiencing these difficulties. And yet, like, they're not necessarily resisting, this egalitarian state. They want, but with men, it seems to be that they are falling more towards patriarchy. Is there a specific element that describes that disparity, or?
I mean, I think it's just the way that society is composed. People feel that they have to perform certain roles and functions, and when that is mixed up in some capacity, I mean, what's happened